Um, thank you all for being here. We are going to start our May 21st, 2024 committee meetings now, and we're going to start with the Operation Services Committee agenda. But before we do that, I'd like a motion for Miss Lindsay to join the meeting.
So, second?
Second. Oh,
I got that first from Mr. McBride, second from Mr. Riddle. All in favor?
aye.
Any nays? All right, Ms. Lindsay, you are now able to join the meeting. Okay, and at this time, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to LeBaron Moten, and let's get on with it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hannah. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, staff, and community. We have several information items on the agenda for you this evening. The first information item, and I do offer, we have Mr. Robert Lambert here with us this evening if there are any specific questions. And this is related to USI Insurance. The district is seeking to do a 90-day trial to review our employee benefits program for pharmacy and health insurance. There's been some discussions within our staff as well as with USI about some potential cost savings without negatively impacting services to our staff. So that is being presented to you this evening for consideration and will be followed up at next week's regularly scheduled board meeting for action. And again, Mr. Lambert is here if there are any specific questions on that item.
Are there any questions from the board members regarding USI and in reference to the insurance for our employee benefits?
I would say that I think it would just be fair just to give us a small overview. That
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, sure. Okay. Hi, thank you for letting me be here. I'm Rob Lambert. I work with USI Insurance, and I know we've been speaking with the district for quite a while. And the overview is relatively simple. It's a 90-day review. It's not altering any of the contracts. It's effectively just looking at it to see if there's any opportunity for the school district to save money. Currently, this is approximate numbers. You have about 2,200 employees that are covered, spending about $25 million, which is obviously a lot of money. We, meaning USI, we have consultants on our team that have the ability to review your contracts, review the information, and come back and show our findings back to the group to determine, for example, is there a better pharmacy contract to be had? Are there better terms and conditions to be negotiated? None of this is going to mean any change to any of the contracts that you have in place. It would really just be an investigation and then come back and present those findings to determine if it's worthwhile to move forward.
I think this is a really good thing and a way to reinvest in our employees.
Right.
well, I'm glad you did the overview because basically what you're saying to me, you're looking at possibility of saving up some money,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
up to us when we look at it, we can see it,
Sure.
then we can make a decision. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you.
Would this likely save or lower premiums for employees' families if they were?
It ideally would reduce the cost.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're looking for. It's
Right.
a good way. We're looking for opportunity to save money.
Good.
And there's probably 3 different specific areas we'll be searching, and then come back and then share that back to the group. And then
All right.
the way it would save money is if you actually move forward with those recommendations.
Okay.
Fabian?
And I just want to clarify, we're saving money but not cutting quality. We
Correct.
all want to save a buck, but
No,
it's
it's not by, yeah.
quality services. So you'll be doing a side-by-side comparison so that everything that we're comparing is comparable to what is currently being given or better.
Correct.
Thank you.
And to reiterate with what Ms. Fabian said, I mean, I know there's a rating that people who have, for instance, Blue Cross or people who have a different insurance plan
Right.
rate their insurance. Do you look at that and say, you know, yes, this is cheaper, but people are unhappy with, you know, their,
It typically doesn't involve a reviewing, for what we're doing, won't involve reviewing the quality of the actual providers.
it won't?
No,
Okay.
we're not going to come back and say, hey, move to a different insurance carrier. That's not what we're talking about. It's just reviewing what options you have available. It could be maybe somebody chooses to use a different provider and they charge less, but that's an employee choice. That
Oh.
would not be something we're going to come back to the school district.
Oh, okay.
And so the staff has options in terms of, I heard you say the pharmacy.
Correct.
They have options of which pharmacy they can use, right? It's not anything where you are stuck with one.
No. We're not recommending that at all. The idea is behind it, you know, Mike, again, this is just an estimate because we don't have access to your information yet. Typically, employers spend anywhere from 20 to 25%. So for you, that might be as much as $6 or $7 million that you're spending on pharmacy costs for all the people that are insured. And literally, it could be just negotiating a better contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and coming back and telling you what those differences are. That's one of the services that we provide, would be actually analyzing the contract. Doesn't mean you can go to one pharmacy versus another. Doesn't mean we're going to restrict the drugs that your employees have access to. Ideally, what it would mean is you get access to the same quality providers, the same quality pharmacy, but you actually pay less because you've negotiated in a different way.
And your administrative costs?
During this period, there's no cost at all. I mean, what we would come back to is make a proposal back to the school district after the fact if you want to move forward with that.
Oh, I see.
Just a quick question then. When I have a broker for instance, my auto and home insurance, they look at other carriers, other insurance companies, and they might say switch from, you know, who you have right now. If you switch to this other one, you get a better rate. That's not what you're doing. You're saying you're staying with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Why is that? Why are you not looking at other carriers?
For a variety of reasons. One would be that's not really the scope of what we're getting to, is trying to move away. Another is we don't know what your union contract, for example, might state that you have to be with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So the idea behind it is rather than, and that when you move from one carrier to another, that typically means you have change and you have people that maybe have hospitals or doctors that aren't still covered. We're trying to get through an evaluation where you don't have that type of disruption. That's probably it. And the reason why we're just focusing on Blue Cross is that we have probably 200 different clients that use Blue Cross. And so we have a certain amount of expertise as to where to look, what to negotiate, and how to try to generate those savings without having to go through that. Now, at a future date, you might decide, hey, we are open to doing that. You might go through what we call an RFP, but that's not what we're talking about for this investigation.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because insurance providers ain't gonna tell you everything.
Well, that's it. And so you currently don't have a direct broker relationship where somebody's looking at all those different parts of your contract. And that's really what that's what we would be doing.
So my question is to the board is, when he come back with these findings and see, have you guys ever thought about looking at other insurance companies doing what he just said, a RFP, to see if you can get the same thing that you get now for cheaper by being with somebody else?
Isn't that what your department does, is put out a request for proposal on insurance?
So that is an excellent question. So we want to make sure that we're equipped with the information. Currently, the service that's being offered to us is something that we haven't explored in some time. So this will help inform that decision if that's the right option to go.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm forgetting your name. I'm
Rob
sorry.
Lambert.
Mr. Lambert, thank you so much for the presentation. All right, and I would like to go back, Mr. Moten, if you will. I need to, I skipped the minutes, the approval of the minutes. So if I could have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the April 16th, 2024 OSC
I don't
meeting.
have my phone with me.
Motion to approve?
You know, I wasn't able to pull those minutes up.
Oh, really?
I mean, were you
Even in
able?
executive content?
Yeah, I'm on executive content. I couldn't get them up.
And I did,
Everything else is there.
log in and everything, and so maybe we need to hold them.
Well, she's gonna try to pull them up here.
Well, if we didn't read them, let's just hold them because
Okay, well, we're gonna hold those minutes until the next meeting, or we'll find out how long we
Yeah.
can hold them. Okay,
yeah, let's
for
just hold
approval.
them. Hold them.
All right, and is that the consensus of the board?
Okay,
That's fine.
Okay, very good.
I tried.
Okay, Mr. Morton, you can proceed.
I'm already signed
All right, thank you, Ms. Hannah. So again, we have remaining information items. I'll highlight those items. Please ask questions if you have any. Special Education and Homeless Transportation RFP update. We're going to be requesting this RFP no later than September of 2024. And we have identified some information will be provided to the vendors that gave us an initial proposal on why we're doing this.
So are we gonna be prepared for the upcoming school year? You say September. So our current providers, transportation providers, they're going to continue until we go through this process, right?
So, Ms. Hannah, that is not what we would be proposing. We will be looking to procure emergency services for special education and homeless for the 2024-2025 school year. The reissue of this RFP by September of 2024 will be in anticipation of the 25-26 school year.
So you say emergency. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so our current contract expires June 30th, 2024. And because of the status of the RFP and the district needing to reissue the RFP, we will need to procure other contractual services for next school year outside of the RFP process.
So that we're covered.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, that's what,
It takes that much time in order to
yeah.
get an RFP? Okay.
Yes.
So you just go out in emergency, get one, and then redo it? Because you've got 5 vendors or so that you choose from. Okay.
Yes,
that's
sir.
fine.
Ms. Gonzalez, you look like you got a question.
Well, I was just wondering why we didn't discuss it earlier.
So we brought
'Cause-
the, excuse me, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Mr. Moen.
Yes, so we brought the special education transportation RFP information to the board on a couple different occasions. We conducted a proposal
Oh, okay.
opening, and we did an analysis of the proposals, and this is what we found.
That
Okay.
we needed to redo them.
We needed to reissue because there's a series of information that's either incomplete or missing from all the proposals that we received.
So,
Okay.
okay, I get it. One second.
And we,
Ms. Bailey.
and we wanted to inform the board of this. We will be providing that feedback to the vendors that propose to us where there may have been deficiencies in their proposals. So they're aware if they choose to submit another proposal in the future.
So
And then-
becau-
Oh, go ahead, Miss Hannah.
No, so because of the required information missing, and because, and we're gonna have to, and I'm speculating, we're gonna have to expend more money because of the use of an emergency transportation, because the RFPs aren't gonna be due until September, but school starts in August.
I
That's
guess,
what
But
I'm
we
trying
wouldn't be
to-
paying a vendor.
well, can I add to Ms. Hannah's point, because I think I have that same question. Are we going to be either penalized or like overcharged in any way by getting an emergency vendor?
So there is always that potential.
Okay.
However, within this RFP process, we identified that these services could be provided by multiple vendors instead of just one singular vendor.
Right,
So when
okay.
we go to procure emergency services, we'll have a similar approach.
Got it.
Because of the special education homeless population and the transportation needs they have. So there's no guarantee that we would expend additional funds, but there is that possibility. I don't want to mislead the board. We're currently developing a plan to support this effort on an emergency basis for next school year while we reissue the RFP.
Okay, and then that next RFP will get us back on track of our original timeline. Okay,
Yes,
okay.
that is the
That
plan.
makes a lot more sense.
So, okay.
Just final question, sorry, for me. Who's gonna manage those relationships? Is that you,
So that'll be myself and Ms. Williams' office.
Ms. Williams? Okay,
And we will be doing this obviously in collaboration with the special education department
Right.
and the outreach department for the homeless students.
got it, okay.
Ms. Fabian?
So I just want to clarify, our agreement ends June. The emergency so then we would not have a contract, we're not expending funds there. The emergency is just when the need arises for transportation of these students. So it's not like we're double paying. We're just paying for when the need arises because we don't have a contract in place.
Right, but
So,
can
And
you
yes,
please
and those-
clarify, but because we have students
we do, right.
that will be needing those
Right.
service consistently, not on an as-needed basis.
Yes. So the goal with this would be, yes, after the current contract expires at the end of June, that contract would be done. We would procure other services so we can provide the continual support for the students in those two subgroups starting next school year.
What
So
about the summer?
And the remainder of the summer for those students that need the services in the month of July after summer school.
So my other question is, because we're seeing that it wasn't just one vendor, but 5 that we're not understanding how to complete an RFP. I know you've done it in the past where you've had those trainings. Are you going to gather the 5 and do like a one training overview, or
right.
just specifically, are you reaching out to each individual 5 to say this is the area that you need fixing? And then if you are seeing that this is an issue, can we, look at over the summer doing another training on our processes of RFPs and submitting documentation to be able to be considered so that vendors can do it correctly, the first time around, so we're not in these issues? Because I understand Adriana's point of why didn't we bring this up earlier, but to Mr. Moten's point, we put this out, it's not our fault, it's, we're not getting the quality RFPs that were required. So I think it's just training the community so that they understand how to fill these out and what we're looking for. So
Mr.
are we gonna do like a training again?
So we're currently analyzing the deficiencies within the proposals. That is a good recommendation. We've done that in the past for the RFPs for construction projects. The transportation is a little different, but obviously it is crucial to the district that we have responsiveness from vendors that understand. And a lot, as the board is aware, if you noted what was presented in the agenda item, it is in a variety of areas from all the vendors. It's not one singular area from the vendors. So we'll review that suggestion during the summer before we reissue this by September.
Good, Mr. Edwards?
This is, as much as I come to these meetings, y'all, we know that most of these contracts have an expiration date. All of them do, right? It almost appears to me, and please, I mean this in the most respectful way. Why are we waiting till almost the last minute to start working on these type of things? A contract, something like this, we should have been working on last year, toward the end of the year, because we know the possibility that vendors may make these type of mistakes. So we want to be looking at this as a way where we given that grace period in the event something like this happened to prevent to ever having to spend extra money when there's no need to. The second piece to this, and I've been wanting to ask this because I know outreach when they picking up the homeless. When we classify the kids are homeless, are they using any address in this city? Because I've known before in the past we've picking kids up from Kenosha and all over. And what I know in other districts, Gurnee don't do that. 187 ain't doing that. 126 ain't doing that. I'm talking to those superintendents. At least that's what they're saying to me, so I don't know if it's true or not. But what I'm saying is, how do that work, right? Because I know when you move out to Gurnee, they send sheriffs to your house to make sure you actually live there before they let you sign up. It's almost like everybody coming right here in Waukegan.
So
Mr.
can I-
Edwards, I can, Mr. Dupuy, will you please come up? But there are specific laws in regards to homelessness.
McKinney-Vento
and
does that.
McKinney-Vento, thank you. McKinney-Vento, I was using the words that Mr. Edwards is using. but
And-
McKinney-Vento, that's our homeless population. So I'll let Mr. Dupuy explain that and what is our responsibility as a district. And it's not only our responsibility as a district, it's every district in Illinois that has this same responsibility. So go ahead.
Yeah, to support our students, good evening, everyone. To support our students that are in McKinney-Vento or McKinney-Vento, well, the approach that we took to ensure that our students are getting proper transportation to school is if any student, we have a cost share agreement with any other district, we keep that cost share agreement, but if they live within the bounds of our district, we provide a bus for them because of two things. One, we don't want them to I don't want to use the word expose, but I'm trying to think of the right word to use. We want to keep it as normal as possible for them so that they can have the same kind of experience as possible. Because according to the law, we have to make sure that we eliminate any barriers that they may have that would not allow them to have a regular school experience. So, yeah. So, right now, we do have cost share agreements with other districts, which is a common practice. We have documentation with that, and we have an amazing transportation point person liaison who takes care of that for us. And we're making sure that everything is being done to the T. In fact, we just finished looking through all that and making sure that our kids are getting what they need according to the law.
Mr. Dupuy, but I also wanted you to touch on that if a student is identified as McKinney-Vento and is attending our school district and hypothetically moves to Kenosha, what is that right of that student?
Yeah, the right of the student is they decide to stay in their home school if they want, and they could even have there could be a best interest determination form that is filled out, and that would determine if it's in the best interest of the child to go to the other district or stay here wherever the child feels they could be most successful. That could happen.
And just to add to that, because I don't want to misspeak, because I think I did earlier, because of the contracts and our agreements, we are in this pickle now that Mr. Moten is reviewing. I was misremembering something that we had discussed, so this is much clearer now. And to Mr. Dupuy's point, it is that right of the student. And a lot of times it is in their best interest to stay at their home school because that's where people know their situation, other than going to somewhere brand new where they have to kind of maybe relive traumas and make new connections where people might not understand what they're going through, right? Even though maybe grandma, auntie, like whoever might live in Kenosha or another place. So I just wanted to retract what I said earlier because I understand why we're having this discussion now and we're kind of at this eclipse, if you will, in terms of the contracts. But I think it is the priority for us to have busing continuity-wise, because I think it does make a difference when parents know who their bus driver is and who's expecting that, their kid to be picked up by. So we need to really, really I mean, put all hands on deck when it comes to that, because that does make a difference, and that's why we had those incidents that have happened in the past, where student doesn't get dropped off where they're supposed to, or goes missing, and people don't know where to contact. So, yeah, when the transition happens, it has to be very seamless.
Yeah, Mr. Rivera, excuse me, our liaison, transportation liaison, Mr. Rivera, does an amazing job, along with our McKinney-Vento team, making sure that our kids are getting what they need as fast as we can.
Okay.
Ms. Fabia?
And I think it's because of that students choose to stay in our district. So I just want to say that when given the option, if these students are leaving our district and they're given the option to either stay in Waukegan or continue in their new district, it is a compliment to you and to your team that they are choosing to stay and that they're seeing that that is the best in their interests. So kudos to what you are doing. But again, we know that transportation needs to be put in place, and
Yeah.
we have to do what we have to
Yeah.
do to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to ask before you leave. So when we pick up the homeless, are we using just buses? Because I know we used to use cars. So this is what I have an issue with. Because there's been many of times we've sent cars out to get these kids. They're not coming to school. They're not getting in those cars. And so it's a waste of transportation. And unfortunately, I can't say names of kids, but I got about 20 of them. And this was constant. 3-4 days out of the week. I dealt with about 7 of them at John Lewis. You know, so what I'm saying is I want the district to tighten up when they're missing so many. We got to put something in place to put some fire up under these parents. Like straight up, y'all. Because, and to you ladies' point, it is a compliment when a kid want to stay in the district. But most of our kids want to stay in the district because it's almost like they get to do whatever they want to do. When I'm looking at these other districts, those rules are there and they tight. We're not bending, we're not folding. And I know we're trying to look at the state law, y'all, but somebody got to be bold because we're losing. In the classrooms, we're losing. They doing what they want to do. They disrespecting the teachers. They doing all of that. I don't want to get off topic, but I'm saying that we got to put our foot down now. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Dupree.
That could be a follow-up conversation.
Absolutely.
Can I add a comment?
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you, Miss Hannah. I would like to see how we can get a calendar in place, either as a board or for a superintendent, with regard to when contracts are going to be reviewed and possibly terminated. We need to have those items on the agenda in a timely process. This is not the first conversation that we're talking about last-minute decisions. We are continuing to have this in a variety of different departments or areas, so we really need to get that into place.
You're talking more proactive.
Noted, Ms. Lindsay.
Yes, as wherever we can be proactive, we should be.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dupree. Are there any questions from the board on any individual agenda item that needs to be asked of the administration?
Of these in 5A, B, C? or-
Yes.
I have a question on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, not on C, because I think C, renewal of PACE is something important for our kids to have, but on the next item, annual waiver of facilities, not for that one, I'm sorry. D for the nonprofits listed was fine, but E, I had a question about that renewal waiver, rental waiver for Jocelyn Center, and that is quite a large waiver, and I know Jocelyn does some good works, and this is for a camp, it's almost $20,000, waiving the entire fee. And when I read the information on that, I saw that Jocelyn is getting paid through Medicaid for most of the attendees of the camp. And they're using 3 or 4 of our classrooms. And again, I'm wondering, did we ask Jocelyn, since they're getting paid, that maybe we should get paid for some of, the fact that we have to provide custodial services? The building has to be opened and cleaned every day for those students. It seems only fair if they're getting some pay from Medicaid, and they say that 95% of their students are receiving Medicaid. Some of those students are not even Waukegan students, that we would ask for what can they pay us for custodial or cleaning care. The building has to be open for summer for that camp. I just wonder if that question was asked.
Mr. Riddle, I'm going to ask that, Mr. Moulton, you can answer that, but based on our executive team meeting and what we said we were going to do in situations like this, I'd like to go back and revisit this with the team and Jocelyn. So if we could just put a stick pin in this one, but if you
Okay.
if you wanted to answer Mr. Riddle's question, and you do have the answer now, by all means, please do so.
No, Superintendent, we'll bring this back.
So I'll ask the board if you can just give us some
For
grace,
next
and
time.
we'll be back with this.
Sure.
Okay, we will, go ahead, Ms.
No, I wanted to ask a question on item C, not on this one.
Okay, all right, we will go to Mr. McBride, you have a question?
The question for me, this is the first time I've heard of Jocelyn. Is this their first time? Or they've been here
No,
before?
no, Jocelyn's worked with us for,
Okay, so they've been here before.
yes.
And I guess the question for me, what did we do last time in terms of them being here?
So, Mr. McBride, what's being presented is consistent, based on my understanding with what we did last year. This particular camp was at Whittier Elementary School, I believe, last year.
And the waiver was 19,000?
We'll come back with that. I'm not exactly sure what that amount is, but because of the ESSER cliff, this is something where we talked about
Yeah.
that we would see where we can share expenses with, and that's why I want to table this. It was a conversation that came up through the budgeting process,
Yeah.
and so this may not be the recommendation. I just want to circle back with my team and bring it back.
Okay.
And I just want to comment real quick on the Jocelyn Center, because I don't know how many of you guys remember what happened last year. They used Whittier School. We had an incident there. They said that it was gunfire there, and it wasn't none. It wasn't none. They made a big old fuss that they wasn't safe over there. And so I'm agreeing with Mr. Riddle, because most of those kids that was in that camp are not our kids. So I'm glad we're tabling this, and it's something for us to think about. Please.
Can we-
And if you will, board, through consensus, could we ask the superintendent to see if she can get numbers to make sure that we are doing this for our students and not other students? Is that,
Ms. Hannah, I had already written down to let's see
Okay.
what the percentage of students served last year and
Okay.
what was the, what are they thinking that percentage looks like this year? So I wrote that down, so I'll be asking my team.
all right, thank you. Okay, you good?
Yeah, on that item.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the, operations vehicle purchase?
So I had a question on C.
Oh,
We can go
I'm
back. That's
sorry.
okay. I thought you were asking me if we were
No,
good on
go
the
ahead
Jocelyn
with
Center.
C. Go ahead with C.
Just really quick, I see the total costs, and I apologize that I didn't get a chance to review operations agenda earlier. If we could, I would like to see a breakdown of the number of students and the number of days as to how we're coming up with this 735,000. Obviously, we need it. Our students need the transportation. But for me, I would feel better knowing where that number comes from, that it's not being, just pulled out of the sky, that it's per number of students, per number of days, if
Yeah,
if
the
they're able
pace.
to use it all the way over the summer, how many are utilizing it. Because the only thing that as a parent, our PACE bus does work with the regular schedule, but when we have non-regular days, we're also having issues. So our kids are not utilizing it for all 180 days of the school year because those late starts or testing days, they're not able to, not all students are able to get to their destination or be picked up where they're normally picked up, because those inner neighborhood routes are not running during those times. Only the major ones are. So that's the only question I have as to, why the cost is the cost, because I know that we're not fully utilizing services.
Yes, we can certainly provide a breakdown of this detail. I would like to remind the board and the community, this is something we do annually. This is the transportation service for our high school students in AOEC. This is a transportation option that the district provides. So as far as utilization, whether some students are utilizing it or not, with the passes we provide, we provide it. So we can certainly give you that breakdown, but I did want to make that point. If students are choosing not to utilize the service, we still need to provide it, similar to what we do with Illinois Central.
Yeah,
But we can provide that breakdown.
I want to be clear, I'm not saying that the service is not needed, and I know that this is something we do every year, and I know that we have to provide it whether they're utilizing it or not. What I'm saying is that the PACE bus itself is not accommodating to our schedules, right? And I understand why, like they're a larger organization that serves the entire city, but looking at that our students are not given the opportunity to use that bus pass on those days that are not consistent
Yeah, they
with the
are.
normal schedule. So it does not go into, if you look at the PACE bus schedule, the late start days, it does not go into the neighborhoods for, if they're starting at 10, those little neighborhood routes, my kids specifically, I will tell you, will have to walk 30 minutes away to catch the bus versus
30 minutes.
catching the bus at the end of the block on a normal day. Same thing, AOEC schedule does not line up with Brookside and Washington schedule. So the AOEC kids don't always have that opportunity either because they're starting earlier and ending later. And so again, those bus routes do not go into those inner city neighborhood bus stops where they would be far away from their home neighborhood bus stops. If you look at the PACE schedule, it's very scaled back during the middle of the day, and I understand why, right? And they do the bigger cities, or the bigger main streets throughout the city. So I'm not saying that, like, don't give the bus pass if they're not gonna use it. PACE isn't offering us that service to be accommodating, and I understand why. So I just wanna know what the breakdown is, like why we're being charged what we're being charged. And maybe have a conversation in the future as to how we can have service to accommodate on those particular days.
Mr. Edwards?
She's absolutely right, because in the morning time, you have those half-an-hour buses. So they may go from 7 to 9. They may go from 7 to 9 and it's over with. Then they may come back probably about 12:30 and go for just a little bit. That's been like that for forever in the district. But Ms. Hannah, before you skip over D, I have some questions for D.
Okay.
I want to know, what is the policy with that? And I'm going to tell you why. A lot get past this board. Last year, I spearheaded an event, Juneteenth, over there at Whittier and Edith Smith Field. I spearheaded this event. I was part of a committee. Myself, Sylvia England, board president, Mr. Ewan, and it was about 7 other people. I reached out to the district this year because I wanted to continue on with the same event. I spoke with the deputy superintendent, Mr. Moulton. I had reached out, took a while for them to get back with me. When they got back with me, we spoke. Mr. Moulton stated to me he was going to go look for the paperwork from last year. Eventually, I talked with the superintendent, and she said to me she would email me, right? My issue with this is because I watch this happen all the time, and I apologize to Mr. Ewan because I ain't accusing nobody of anything. But I don't remember us coming in front of this board getting approval for that space, number one. Number two, when the superintendent said to me that there was a partnership, I ain't never known about no partnership. And again, I spearheaded this event. I did the promotion for this event. It was a beautiful event, right? It was packed. And so when I reached out this time and asked and inquired about the event, I had all of these demands that I would have to meet. But none of this was provided last year. So my question is, how do this work? So what do I have to do? Get somebody with a title for them to come in and get the space for me? Because again, we did not come in front of this board. I did not have a partnership with this board as it relates to this event. This board was free when it came to helping. Staff came out. Food was paid for, and I do a lot of events in this community, and I often reach out to this board for help, and I never really gets it. So I then started using people individually, and that's how I started getting help, just individually. But I felt like this board did this because the board president was a part of this committee, and he was able to just go get the feel, y'all. And then to say to me that I need insurance, I understand you guys think, but if I'm saying to you I'm using vendors, when we talk about Belly Bouncy House, you guys have a copy of their certificate of insurance. You have that. You guys have used them before. So if I got an event from 12 to 6, why is you gonna make me get insurance if they gonna be my sponsor, or I'm hiring them as a vendor and they gonna be there from 11 to 6, an hour before the event, and gonna be there to the end of the event, and they already have insurance? I think at some point y'all got to come to some type of consensus on how this gonna be done, and it should never be used without it coming in front of this board first. I don't care what your title is, where you from, I don't care about none of that, because I watch it happen too often. Even with my state officials, they can come here and they get favors. I watch non-for-profits get tables and chairs delivered without coming to get to this board. But it feels like every time when it's me that needs something from this board or want to do something with this board, y'all put up all these restrictions with me. And I don't know. I know why. Because I come here to speak out. And I'm not going to stop. So what I'm saying is, when y'all talk about this approval of waivers and stuff like this, I want to see a policy put together. I want to see it enforced with everybody, every entity. I'm tired of personal relationships allowing this to happen. And I told the deputy superintendent, I said, you're not going to find no paperwork because there was never none put. And I didn't get a call back because he didn't find no paperwork. And Superintendent Deere, you never emailed me. I talked to you Monday. You told me to wait on the email. It never came through. And here we are in a new week, Tuesday. And this is what I say when we talk about communication, y'all. Now, I'm doing something, and I was going to invite you guys to come out there to register kids. For whatever reason, y'all can't get a lot of them out there, but every time I do an event, I got 500-700 of them there. Take advantage of it. It makes no sense not to. This is the way you reach the parents. This is when you have your departments out there handing out brochures, explaining something, communicating with the community. This is an opportunity that I'm giving to y'all. Don't like me, because I don't like you. But let's do what's best for the people. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
So, Mr. Edwards, I do want to go on the record for our conversation. Yes, we did partner with the Juneteenth, so it was a collaboration with the district, and I'm going to call it the Juneteenth Committee because I don't know the proper name of what you guys were calling it, so please excuse me if I'm giving the wrong name. The second thing I stated was that if you needed assistance filling out that paperwork, that someone from my office, LeBaron or myself, would help you fill out your paperwork. So all you need to do is come up and let us know, and I told you that day over the phone, we'll help you fill out the appropriate paperwork.
So my question to you as superintendent is, you keep saying a partnership. So I'm saying to you normally, and I'm saying to the board, normally when somebody uses district property, right? There's paperwork to be filed. Am I right? Doesn't this have to come in front of the board? What I'm asking is, if I'm spearheading the committee, if I'm spearheading the event, when we decided to do the Juneteenth event, I was at every single meeting until the event had. And not one meeting was it ever mentioned that there was a partnership. So what I'm saying to y'all is what happened is maybe there was a backdoor deal or a partnership or something done outside of that meeting, but there was not no partnership with the district. I wouldn't have agreed to it, and that was my event. That's what I'm saying. Who made the decision if I didn't?
I
All
can't
right.
speak on behalf of the committee, but we did have a partnership. We did throw the Juneteenth celebration last year as a collaboration of the school district and community. And we will help you fill out the paperwork if you need help. I can't speak up.
Y'all gave me a badge to say this reason, and I'm
So-
sorry, and I'm not being disruptive because we having a conversation. This is how you do this. This is not the truth. This is not the truth. And what you said to me is, you did say to me, you will help fill out the paperwork. You said, I have LeBaron in the office right here. And I stated to you, I said, well, he had somebody send me the paperwork. You said, hold on, I'm going to email you, is what you said to me. And I told you that, and you said, oh, so she did email you. You just said this to me downstairs. And I said, no, she did not. And those two gentlemen were sitting right there when you said it. I
Mr.
wasn't supposed to fill out the paperwork till I received the email. So what I'm saying to you guys is, all I'm saying is this: if we got a policy and there's procedures, everybody should have to follow them. It's a slap in the community's face when somebody can come up in here just because they got a name tag and can jump over to get things done.
Okay.
That's not fair. It's not.
Ms. Fabia?
So I just want to clarify two things. We do have a policy, and it is online, and so that is set in place as to when we do fee waivers, and community can look into that and see the different avenues for requesting fee waivers. But I would also like to say, as most of you all know, I did work in the district previous to this role. In my role as FACE, annually, I would partner with the Juneteenth committee with Ms. Sylvia England in order to produce this event. So we would have those partnerships in place. And if you notice that we do have a lot of different events where we'll have district logo on different flyers. And so if there is staff members that are planning events and they decide to go into that partnership and there is our district logo, I don't see if there is an agreement with a staff member and somebody's working through that, why then it would have to come through the board for the waiver if it's a partnership, right? If it's serving specifically our community. For example, our back to school fair. We have 40 different resources that come out and more, different organizations, different vendors that come out to serve that event. We're not gonna have each 40 of them fill out a fee waiver when they're coming to participate in our events. So I want to clarify when it's a district event and when it's a district partnering event versus an outside entity event, and there is a policy for that outside
Yeah.
entity.
So procedurally, if it's a district event, the paperwork does not come before the board.
Okay, and so to comment what you said, no logo was ever on my flyer. Again, it's almost like y'all not hearing me. I spearheaded the event, is what I'm saying to you is. And I'm not saying that the district does not partner with other entities. How was it a partnership with this committee if it was my event? Nobody never spoke to me. Nobody from the district never attended any one of those committee meetings, ever. So again, what I'm simply saying is, I don't know what was done. I never knew that there was a partnership until she fed something just last Monday. I wouldn't have carried on if there was a partnership.
I can confirm that
so-
there has always been a partnership in the past with Ms.
You can confirm
England,
that, Carolina,
but
you
I don't
can't
know.
because this was a different
Okay.
Juneteenth committee. There
Right.
was 3 different
And if
committees
Brandon
last
was
year.
on
Okay,
there, was he
and-
acting as the board?
Okay,
I mean, I'm asking, right? If if we have a board member that's acting on behalf of the board, and that becomes a partnership, is that something that we need to put in policy? Is that something we need to review? Or is that something that we agree?
Maybe we just need to look at, review the policy. Maybe it needs updating or tweaking or what have you, so that we don't have these misunderstandings anymore. And so,
Ms. Hannah, may I please say something? I don't
Yes.
want to leave with it being presumed that Brandon was representing the district, and he could have, and it could have been misfilled. I'm not sure. So President Ewing isn't here. So let's get clarity from him before we state that he led this, and he's not here to say yes or no.
Correct. 'Cause typically it was the FACE
Okay,
department that
and
would
so-
lead it, so that would be Ms. Fields now.
I
Yeah,
don't think nobody did. I was out there too at the Juneteenth event, and I thought it was done collectively with everybody that was out there. I don't think it was no one person that actually did the event, because we all were out there doing our thing in terms of manning the bouncy house. You had individuals helping out with the serving. So, but to Mr. Edwards' point, what I didn't hear was that let's not try to do this all over again. I just think the event is good for the community, and if we have to, it's Juneteenth. We should do the same thing we did last year. Come together and do it. I mean, I know Mrs. England was there, but everybody was out there.
Yeah, it was
But
a really
again,
nice-
I'm
Yeah,
saying,
and
I'm
Ms.
saying
England
that.
generally does that, and I think she's already promoting this year's, correct?
But
Oh, I
to
don't
his
know.
credit, I think that
Yeah.
he did quite a bit of promoting.
Absolutely.
And I think he's in his heart, he's trying to do it again. And I think that whatever we can do to accommodate his idea along with us, we should get it done. That's the bottom line to it.
And that's why we have extended the invitation to help him fill out all the paperwork necessary. We will sit and, actually fill it out with him. So,
So,
I'll circle back with Mr. Edwards. No, LeBaron, you circle back with Mr. Edwards, please.
And are we asking him, are requiring him to get insurance?
Whatever our policy states is what he will have to
And I
have.
think that's the issue, because one of the issues, because he didn't have to do it last year.
Last year, I'm sorry, Ms. Hannah, I didn't mean to cut. I thought you
No,
said-
I'm just saying, because see, when we do things inconsistently, and one year we do it this way, and then now we're gonna try to go back. It causes problems.
Confusions, yeah.
And confusion with people. And so we have to do, if the policy says that, insurance is required and everything. I know that when I did my camp, I had to produce insurance each summer. And that was of my cost, that I did that. However, okay, I don't know, I can't say, none of us can say what any kind of agreement was made last year or whatever, but the only thing, we can move forward and we can assist Mr. Edwards in whatever, endeavor and event that he is attempting to do, because if it's going to be a duplication of last year, it was absolutely magnificent. Kids had fun, parents were there. It was just a really good event, and so I have no issue with us looking to see how we can really help this move forward.
So I do have confirmation that we did partner with the Juneteenth. I'm going to call it the committee. I'm sorry, for the Juneteenth event. Let me do that. So I do have confirmation that we'll be going out to the board later that we were partnerships. We even asked for volunteers within the district for who would want to volunteer. I believe Nick sent that out last year. So we'll get that to the board. And what you do have my commitment is that we have to follow policy for sure, but we will help Mr. Edwards fill out that paperwork. Thank you.
Superintendent, I would also like to add that our FMX specialists reached out to Mr. Edwards, provided the paperwork as he stated with lending some assistance, but as the superintendent stated, we'll continue on in those efforts to assist.
All right.
I just want
Any
to add our
final
logo was on
question,
there.
final comment about this?
I did look up the flyer, and I did confirm our logo is on the flyer, as well as, to Mr. McBride's point, there were a lot of organizations that helped put together that Juneteenth. And they've been expanding every year so that it's more than one event now. It goes over a series of days. So, and like I said, I think they're already promoting for next year.
Okay, and so we need to move on because we need to get through this agenda so that we can get to our academic committee meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Moat.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I just wanted to confirm, I know we have Ms. Lensing on audio, if she had any questions about any of the
I'm
agenda
sorry.
items.
Ms. Lensing, do you have any questions?
Yes. Thank you,
sorry,
Mr.
I
Moulton.
can't- look,
I just
you-
had two quick ones regarding the PACE component. So one should be a super fast one. With regard to when students can use it, it says for the school year. So can you tell me when those passes are deactivated? Do they last through the summer? Is the intent behind my question, or are they cut off after summer school is done?
And ask Ms. Williams to come up and answer.
We gotta hurry up. I hear
The
trains.
passes are cut off on May 24th. I confirmed with Pace the other day. But the high school has purchased passes for the summer school students already. They have them in their possession, so they'll be able to use them for summer school. And then the passes are distributed in the first week of August for the students to use throughout the school year.
So I think this goes back to my point, if we could just
Okay.
see an invoicing, right? How many students, how many days are that, to come up with this 700,000 number. I think it just helps
Yes.
us be more transparent.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you for that explanation, Ms. Williams. And then my second component is that this is just authorizing us for the cost of this. Do we currently have a contract in place? If so, when do we go to renew it? The reason I'm asking this question is because I have concerns around the safety provided to students while they're on the PACE bus and what that would look like going forward.
Yeah, Ms. Lindsay, this item is on the agenda for this committee meeting, so I'm going to safely presume that it will be on the next board meeting for approval for the PACE.
Okay.
The PACE agreement.
Okay, can we confirm that, Ms. Williams? And the reason I'm wanting a confirmation is that if we're looking to reduce the time spent on these items, having that information ahead of time, even if it's executive content because it's still under draft or underway, whatever's most appropriate, that would help the board members. Because again, safety is a big concern for our students on the PACE bus. So I would like to see what that looks like if we are renegotiating a contract and then agreeing to this price tied to that contract.
So we have an agreement with Pace that has been in place for a couple years back prior to my arrival. And that contract we can provide to you, but ever since that contract, every year we renew our passes at a 2% increase. So this amount that you have before you now is over the years that we renew every year for 2%. We never go up, we never go down. based on the original agreement back in years.
And we never relook at the terms of the agreement, is what I'm understanding?
So the agreement is for PACE passes only. It's not for us by student. We give them a number, we provide them a list of our students who qualify for a PACE bus pass, and then PACE issues those passes based on the documentation that we provide them. So we're paying for,
So this is just group pricing is what we're looking at. Sorry if I'm interrupting you.
correct, we're paying for passes and not routes, I'll say.
Services.
So I'm sorry, that just brings another question. So if we're paying per passes and we've seen influx of numbers, we're never looking at if the number of our high school students is reducing, then why are we still going up 2% every year, right? Like, we've had years where we had a high number of high school students, you know, over what, it was like 4,500, and now, you know, if our numbers are influxing and we go down, we still pay 2%
It was
more?
an agreement that was put in place, so we can provide that for you. That's all I know.
It just doesn't make sense.
I don't think our population has changed that significantly, though, to warrant a change. I mean, our classes are very big, but
And we don't provide them to the 1.5 miles over either, right?
So,
Um,
Alicia,
For
I
the
think
students
that
that
is
qualify for a mile and a half or.
I think that is a good
I
question.
think we need to look at that,
Just-
'cause-
Can I just,
Wait
give me 2
1
seconds?
second.
Just because we know that enrollment has been declining over the
Yeah.
years, and so what does that look like now versus previous? I do think that that's a very valid question, and we should look at that data.
I'd have
Go
a
ahead,
question.
Mr. Ritter.
Yeah, I have a question as well. I'm wondering if the pass itself, if we checked with PACE, they could even give us the stats of how often that pass is being used. Whether our children, you know, so everything is electronic these days. They may have some idea regarding usage. And or if we ask for that figure, it could be it's a lot lower than we think. We might get our annual fee reduced.
I can look into
And if
that.
they don't have a pass like that, we should ask them to get us those figures, because we issue a special pass. They would have some idea, they could certainly pull that up with the way electronics is these days, who has a pass versus who's paying, you know, for a pass, you know, other than a student.
Well, the last time I got on the bus, Mr. Riddle, I didn't have to swipe. I just showed my pass, and you know, when we sit down. So I don't think
They don't swipe anymore?
I say the last time I was on the bus probably was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I just showed my pass and got on the bus and went and sat down. I didn't have to swipe or nothing.
Wow, okay.
Are there any questions that the audience has in reference to this agenda item?
I'd just like to say, you know, you're spending a lot of time, and I'm glad to see you're doing that. But overall, this is really minimal compared to some of the other things you spend money on. $750,000 for the year, is that?
Yes.
Okay, for 180 days. So this is really nickels and dimes
Yeah.
compared to some of the other stuff you guys have to worry about.
Right.
What are
Okay.
you saying, Ray?
All right. So are we satisfied where we can move on? All righty, the next agenda item, we talked about the Just Operations vehicle purchase. Mr. Moulton, we spent, oh, do y'all have a question? Cause I do.
No.
Okay, we're gonna pay $176,000 for 3 vehicles. And I understand that they're utility. I hope they're utility trucks and they're not just like pickup trucks. When I was looking, it did say, you know, the heavy duty, but that was only one. And then my other question is, why are we going to two different places to purchase the vehicles, and why not just one place to get all of them?
Two are new.
Yes, thank you for the question, Ms. Hannah. So 2 of these vehicles are new and 1 are used. Historically, it's been a significant challenge for the operations department to place orders for these fleet vehicles because of the lead times. Particularly during COVID, we saw lead times anywhere between 12 to 18 months. So we had to diversify how we're making these orders. But these are fleet vehicles that would be equipped with the equipment, side bins, as well as to add to our fleet for snowplow removal during the winter time. Costs have increased, and again, we're trying to. We were in the routine years ago where we were replacing 2 vehicles a year, and then with lead times extending, we're just trying to get ahead of the game and be more creative on how we can procure these assets so we don't have to wait a year or 2 in advance.
And what are you doing with the ones that you are retiring?
Sure. So we do have a policy for disposal of surplus where we have auctioned those vehicles. In the past, we've used open off auction, and we post them for 10 days, advertise them, and we typically get responsiveness on that, mainly due to the parts within the vehicles. They get the parts get separated, but that is how we dispose of those vehicles.
Okay. Yeah,
Just to help you out, it's valid what he's saying because we just purchased some vehicles for the township, and we got a van. It took us a whole year to get it because of back order. But on the other hand, too, speaking of the auction, our fleet that we were using to plow with, once again, the same principle, we auction them off. We put a notice in the newspaper, correct? And it's like a closed bid. One sent it in, and pretty much the highest bidder took the truck.
Yeah.
And that's what we did by establishing.
Online, but similar, Mr. McBride. Yeah.
So yeah, and then not only that, Miss Hannah, that cost of $170 something. It sounds like to me y'all got a deal, a real good deal. But what I know about what trucks cost, y'all got a real good deal. I don't know how you managed to pull that off, but that was a real good deal.
Well, I know that Mr. Moulton uses for lack of the correct term, I'm gonna say our state clearinghouse, so to speak. Something like that where it goes through the state board and all that, approved by the state board and all of that stuff, so, yeah. But I just wanted to know.
Yes.
Okay, because I think I saw a new truck, one of those utility trucks with Waukegan Public Schools on the side. I think I saw one.
Well, we have purchased vehicles in the last few years, so that is possible, Ms. Hannah. But we constantly need to update our fleet. We have quite a few district vehicles, so this will continue our efforts to do that.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Are there any questions regarding the Glenwood and Andrew Cook Elementary School marquee signs? Because I'm glad that they're doing them. The only thing that I would say, I see your hand, Mr. Vukovic. The only thing that I would say is that the superintendent, we need to make sure that the information that is showing on the marquees, that it's monitored and make sure that it's up to date at the different schools. Okay, Mr. Vukovic.
Two questions on that. One is the invoices on these go back to September and October of last year. It's a long time to have a local vendor wait to be paid. And then the other thing, I see they're installed, but are they operational? Because my understanding is at least one of those, the sign was delivered, it was put up, but there was no utilities out to the sign. So there's additional cost involved with getting electricity. So if we've made this kind of an investment, I would hope that they are operating now.
Mr. Moten, I'm sure you could answer that.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Mr. Vukovic will confirm. These two school sites did have them in their site-based budgets, but we're asking for payment. They were approved in the budget process for the current school year. Based on your question, I'm going to assume they're not, so I'll confirm that. Thank you.
Do we have a date? Are they gonna be up by the beginning of the school year?
Yes, and I will personally check tomorrow, Ms. Hannah,
Thank you.
and as well as the programming for messaging that you mentioned.
All right, Mr. McBride?
You know, when I hear Marquise, it takes me back some years. Carmen School. Robert Evans was living at that time. Do you know that for years and years and years there wasn't a Marquise down there? And it took the Ministers Alliance to fight to get a Marquise down there. When I hear Marquise, I'm just thinking about from an equity standpoint. And then even once we got the Marquise down there was an issue about paying for the electricity. And it was a struggle and a fight, but we got it done. So when I hear Marquise, I go all the way back from years and years to think about all that time. There was Marquise in all the schools, but there was never Marquise on the south side. But we finally got one. Thank God.
Yeah, really.
So my question is about the Glenwood one. Isn't that the school I met you at, LaVere? And that sign's out there, but there's no electricity to that sign?
That is the school, Mr. Sabecki, yes.
So the Glenwood is not working. There's no electricity to it. So I don't know why we spend that amount of money to put up signs, but there's no electricity to them. And that's been up all school year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sabecki. I'm sure Mr. Moten will be on top of that and with a resolution for electricity. All right. Okay, and the next item, yes, sir.
You know, in the future, if you're gonna put up those kind of signs, and you're running electricity, if you're coming from the building, it's several hundred feet, you might have to have a special drop. When we were with the Booster Club, we bought at Macri Field, it was gonna cost at the time $20,000 to get electricity out there for the scoreboard. We ended up getting a solar-powered scoreboard. I'm sure there's gotta be something like that out there that would be available.
That's interesting. Again, I see Mr. Moten diligently taking notes, so
Yeah.
I'm going to say he is doing that.
Also, because I don't really have an understanding of what the scope of work is for the company, like the North Shore Sign Company. If it's the expectation that they get paid after completing the work, or if that's on us, I think that's important to distinguish so that we know whose responsibility it is to get it hooked up to our systems. Because if all they had to do was put up the sign, but it's our responsibility to hook it up to the grid in some way, or if it's their responsibility, that be very clear so that moving forward, that's the expectation for all of our vendors.
And it should be contained within a contract.
Yeah, you'd think it would be.
Or the invoice, yeah.
Invoice, the contract, yeah. Okay. Are we ready to move on? Okay, is the approval of a change order for asbestos abatement at AOEC. You're asking for approval, right?
Yes, ma'am, and the information is here, change order of $3,026.46, due to unforeseen conditions, which was sealant within the classroom, windows, that they did not believe were asbestos containing at the time that they gave the proposal. So we're bringing this forward because this is different than the original amount that we asked the board to approve.
Yeah, okay.
And can I ask a follow-up, Ms. Hannah?
Yes, go ahead.
When are all the JROTC classrooms going to transition? Have they already, or?
So the plan, Ms. Gonzalez, is next school year.
Okay. So we gotta clean it up.
Not this school, not this.
The upcoming
The
school year.
following, yeah. So fall this fall?
So the two additional classrooms at AOEC that we're doing in preparation for JROTC
Yeah.
are in anticipation of the fall.
Okay.
Okay, and when we mess around with AOEC, we're gonna make sure that it is handicap accessible, right? It's gotta be.
So, Ms. Hannah, that is something we've discussed, but it's not necessarily related to building accessibility. It's more so program accessibility to ensure those students have the services they need.
Okay, Mr. Edwards.
When we talking about this change order, have y'all considered that whole school over there? One of the things that I've been learning when I'm out here doing this community work is I'm looking at a lot of these apartment complexes being gutted out and redone. So I began to ask questions. They say after a building that is up for 20 plus years, that's something you need to consider. I've said this numerous times before. When you go over there to Washington campus, that whole building smell like sewage. The paint is peeling. It is rust all on them toilet seats, the toilet knobs. Some of the water don't work. Even when you go use the bathroom here, you can't even wash your hands. So what I'm saying is, I know we doing a portion of that school. You know, I know you guys talked about taking out this bond for X amount of dollars. What are y'all thinking? Like, I'm seriously asking, Superintendent, like, I need your staff to like, use a piece of my brain or something, because we're steady patching. We're patching. And so what it's doing is it's costing us more money because we're just patching.
I think, Mr. Edwards, that if I'm not mistaken, I think, and maybe Ray can help me, that that building has historical status.
I don't believe it does.
The AOEC building?
No, I don't believe it does, but Mr. Moulton, you can look at that. I believe that was a
Yeah.
conversation I had with Dr. Newby many years ago. If
Yeah.
memory serves me right, it's not. Mr. Edwards, in regards to your comment, there is a capital improvement committee that I know President Ewing and who else? It's another-
Adriana.
Mr. Riddle sit on, and there's community members, staff that sit on it to prioritize what initiatives get done per year. So all of that's taken into account there. So our goal is definitely not to patch up. At times we do need to patch up just because of and Mr. Moulton, you probably could have spoke to this better than I can, because of the financial impact to the overall district and the need of what is needed as far as like roofs, etc. So there's a priority that the capital improvement plan looks at to say what will happen from year to year. Did you want to expound on that?
Sure. So the district and the Board of Education has made a concerted effort to make permanent repairs. We have done patch jobs, and we do corrective maintenance and do patching, which is one of the reasons why we brought forward the Brookside roof replacement. It's been patched and it's far exceeded its life, but over years it has been patched. So the investment is there to replace it, as well as the plumbing infrastructure that's been in some of the buildings since they've been constructed. So we've made efforts in some key areas, so we don't have to constantly go back and patch like you're suggesting, because we have had to do that over the years. But again, the investment in the facilities has been significant. Restrooms, plumbing, even asbestos abatement in some of our areas where our fire protection equipment and our ceilings and lightings have been significantly replaced. Boilers as well as electrical infrastructure, in some cases outdated in order to serve the electrical needs of the current classroom environment. So we do corrective work and we do patch where needed, but we're trying to, through this capital improvement plan, make some more permanent changes that will last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But do appreciate your concern. It seems like there will always be something that needs to be replaced or fixed, but we're making efforts to get there.
And just
All right.
real quick, just to piggyback on it, I understand we have these committees, But I'll say to you, sir, Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
you on this committee, how often do you go look at these buildings? Do you even go in them? And this is what I'm saying. I'm not talking about one or two, or I'm not talking about being up in there when we're doing a musical. I'm saying frequently going to go look at these buildings, listening to some of the peoples in the buildings before you guys sit at these meetings and make these decisions. Because you don't operate in that building as much as them, I would hope that we are listening to them when they are telling us. And again, when I say taking out this bond, we're going to take, what, 20 million, right? Why not just take the max, since you are already raising the taxes up on the community, and let's go ahead and look at building a new high school. We overcrowded, like for real, y'all.
We didn't do it. We didn't do that. Don't.
That-
People at home, Steve, he's not here.
Yeah.
We did not raise
That is a
taxes.
whole different conversation.
Oh, you're right, y'all
Mr.
didn't. I'm sorry. I'll take that back. Sorry,
Okay, before
y'all.
we alarm people.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vukovic. And then
Just
we,
going back
this the
about-
final question.
That building does have historical value.
Historical value, yes.
The old South Building is what it was known
Yes,
as.
the South
That was the
Building.
original Waukegan
Landmark.
High
In
School.
high school, yes.
Is it a historical landmark,
It's
Mr.
not necessarily a historical landmark,
That's
But
but
it has
what
value.
it is the first high school that served not only Waukegan, but
Right.
North Chicago
Chicago.
and beyond.
Yes.
Right.
It was
Yes.
prior to that building being built in the early 1900s. Waukegan High School was on the top floor of Central School, which was an old school on the location of the current Waukegan Library. So, it may not be on any register, but that building has served Waukegan as a school building continuously
Yes.
since the early 1900s.
You're
And-
right. You're right, Ray. I still got my mother's graduation picture in the picture of the building. She went to school there, and that was the only one school. She lived in North Chicago, but she had to come here walk here to go to school.
And before there was a unit district,
Yes.
that's where the high school administration offices were in that building as well.
Absolutely.
And I just want to clarify, Ms. Hannah had asked me a sidebar question if the building was a historical landmark, and that's what I was addressing, not the historical significance. So if you can look at that, because Ms. Hannah, but I do believe Dr. Newby telling me when I first came in that they had worked on that not being a historical landmark. So if you can look at that, so we can have clarity around that question.
I just have one question real quick.
Miss,
asked us to look into that, and there were 3 schools within the district that looked into the historical landmark, and no, it is not a historical landmark. Ms. Hannah, I would be happy to show you the documentation of that. Okay.
It's not. I just
Okay.
I just thought that it was.
Okay, yeah, we have documentation that indicates that it is not a historical landmark.
Thank you for the reminder, Ms. Tate. We did have to look that up when we applied for the window grant.
Okay,
The
thank you.
AOEC in the high school.
Mr. Sabecki.
I just got one question real quick. This work that's being done, are we making sure before we're paying out that it's up to code? As we learned months ago with the hoods in the kitchens, that we're not up to code? So I just want to verify that we're actually making sure this stuff's actually up to code.
Yes, Mr. Sabecki, according to IDPH standards.
Okay, thank you. All right, the reports, the treasurer's report. Are there any questions? I have questions, but because we have another lengthy agenda, I'm going to leave those questions, okay, for the board meeting. Are there any questions regarding the schedule of investment reports? And I also have questions regarding the student activities and convenience accounts. But I will again wait until the meeting so that we can move on to the ASAP committee meeting. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez, and,
Ms. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ms. Fabian,
Yes.
Ms. Lensing, Ms. Hannah.
yes. Motion passed. We are adjourned, and, ooh,
5-minute break?
we can take a 5-minute break, but we need to, kind of expedite this meeting because. Get started, please, with our May 21st, 2020 Student Achievement Meeting. Okay, the first item is the approval of the minutes. Are we ready to approve those minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Mr. Riddle and Ms. Gonzalez, are there any changes, comments, questions? Okay, so we need to do a roll call.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Ms. McBride, Ms. Carolina,
Yes.
sorry, Ms. Fabian, Ms. Lenzing,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes, okay, minutes are approved. All right, and for time's sake, and you do not usually hear me say that, but because of potential weather, we need to expedite this. And so I am asking any board member if they have any questions regarding any of the items A through Y for Dr. Cesario and the academic team. Are there any?
I have a couple, and some can be grouped together as just broad stroke comments. but a
Okay,
couple
go ahead,
specific
Ms.
as well.
Lindsay. Because I am
Okay,
turning the
let's
meeting
start with
over.
the broad strokes. So for the professional development, so items like E, F, G, I, J, K, M, Q, etc., not all of the forms are completed with consistency. So you'll see some forms are missing checkboxes, and they had to select yes or no. Some forms don't have totals. Some forms include the account numbers that it's coming from, which is great. Some forms include information in the parentheses, like the number of days or the number of expected miles, etc. The frustration continues that these aren't done with consistency. So, Superintendent, I'm going to ask that we maybe have a refresher with staff of some kind so that everyone knows how to fill out the form correctly, and then the board can approve it. Because if these ever went under an audit, it's not done with consistency, and so we would technically fail that audit. Also, general comment about those professional developments. I know, Ms. Hannah, you had asked previously if we could group like items together on the agenda
Yes.
for ease of conversation. So we're sprinkling in different developments throughout the alphabet. Just a reminder, if we can group them together, it'll be easier to navigate the meetings.
Yes.
Before I continue, I do have a specific question about item M.
M. Okay.
And so,
Miss Lensing, can you just hold 1 minute? I know you
Yeah.
can't see body language, but Dr. Cesario wanted to respond to one of your concerns, and then we'll
Okay,
go
great.
right into your question. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Cesario.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr.
Good,
Cesario.
thank you. So, good evening, Board Vice President, Superintendent, members of the board, and members of the community and colleagues. Thanks for your questions, Ms. Lunsig. And I certainly understand your concerns and make every effort to make sure that we're clustering these together. So we'll work on that. We'll continue to work on that. As it's related to the issue with the totals, you're absolutely right. You can't vote on something when, if it's going to change. And I am not saying this in a, offhanded way or anything. I don't mean any ill intent with this. However, this is the information here. Some of the folks may not have all the information or all the totals yet. So we want to get it on information first so that you see it beforehand, and then we finalize it before you would have to actually approve it. And most of the time, We still may not have the actual number because we can't total that up until it's actually all paid for. You know, the cab fare and whatever, the transport back and forth. So then we try to round up. So that's the inconsistency that you might see when it comes to the totals, or where some are blank and some are not totaled out. That's something that you'll see during student achievement, and that's to get it on. We could hold, and that's a discussion that you all would have to have, that we could hold this until we have it all. But what would end up happening is we would miss out on early rates and other pieces like that. So that's part of the explanation as to why some of them are blank.
And I just have one ask with this, and this goes to first the board, but the superintendent as well as Dr. Cesario. And I am saying this based on the professional development, and I have always been a stickler for professional development ever since they started this practice down at the state board, okay? But my question is, the cost of professional development, right? I'm talking the whole thing, right? I can't remember, because I was a part of the budget committee, the budget development committee. I cannot remember if there were line items in reference to professional development. And I don't know if there was, but what I'm asking is that moving forward, that we have a budgeted amount for professional development as a separate line item. And once that budget is gone, no more professional development.
Just to clarify, so there are standalone budget lines for professional development. You've seen some of them come forward for some of the literacy work we're doing, and a lot of that. Where it's a little bit more broad is when we're not exactly sure how much something is going to be. When we're talking programmatic, like a lot of the literacy, a lot of the math that we've purchased, we can pinpoint that down, and we can do that over several years because we're signing contracts on this because of the size of it. But to your point, we'll take that back to the team. It's actually an item that we were going to discuss tomorrow. It's on my team agenda to discuss that, narrowing down the individual professional development allocations, pardon me, so that we can be more, precise and intentional with where we're going and when we're going. And so for individuals, yes, and to build in a cushion. But to your point, yes, we need to be more specific with that.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about location or whatever.
No, yes.
I'm just saying that we need to determine an amount that we're going to spend on an annual basis for professional development, and it needs to be included in our budget development process so that it's already there, and each individual professional development opportunity is not always having to come to the board. Well, I mean, it does have to come to the board if it's over a certain amount, okay? But you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yes.
Yes, so that we can be done with all this haphazardness
Yes.
for the professional development. Go ahead.
So I just want to clarify that each department, I have seen that professional development line item.
Now, I'm not talking
So-
about, I'm talking district-wide.
Right, but some of these professional developments are coming from different buckets, like different grant monies, so I don't know how that would look if you put it all in one. And I personally also like to see per department who's going, why they're going, than having
Right.
like a general $100,000 pot, whoever
I'm not-
comes and
that's
gets it.
not
I think
what
that's
I'm
exactly
saying.
what she's saying. Yeah. She wants us to be more specific with it rather
Yeah.
than saying, here, we're going to dedicate $100,000 in ASAP.
Right.
Each department would have set amount of dollars, and those would be dedicated to DL is going to spend this much for this aspect of that department.
specific
FACE is going to do it on communicating with parents. I'm making this up.
Right.
But that's what, I believe that's what, you're both
Yeah,
saying the
it
same
will
thing.
Okay, so
Just
you're
be-
not
basically
saying to
saying
do
the
one
same
bucket
No,
of
she's not saying
professional
to do that.
development?
No,
Okay.
I'm just
I was
saying-
understanding
No.
you saying
No,
put one,
but no,
one amount, one
I'm
bucket.
talking
Okay.
about, we do, it would be a district-wide amount. However, like you say, it would, and that would be up to the superintendent and Dr. Cesario of what each department, okay, would get for professional development. And also, I am aware, because I was gonna say that too, that the grants that we get, professional development is required in many of the grants, okay? But also, the grant money sometimes is not paying for the professional development. It's coming out of local funds. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
okay.
no, literally, it's on the agenda for tomorrow for my meeting to discuss that, yes.
Okay, and so does anybody else have any other item on the information?
Was Ms. Lansing, I don't think Ms. Lansing was done.
Miss-
Was she?
Yes, I
Oh,
had
I'm sorry.
two specific
Look,
questions,
I'm so
Ms.
sorry.
Hannah.
I don't see you.
No, it's okay. It's hard when I'm remote. I get it. Apologies. I have two specific questions regarding the development. So for K, I'm curious as to how specifically the information is going to be disseminated, and the reason I'm asking is because I had the opportunity to pop in on some ed camp sessions that were held within the district this year, and one of them was about some of the tools that we have available to, like technology tools, to make it easier for teachers to do a variety of different things. And several teachers in there were unaware that these tools were available, or didn't know how to use the tools and didn't know who to contact. So I want to make sure that there's a clear plan to disseminate the information that's learned out of K.
Yes, hi, Ms. Lansing. Thank you so much. And also thank you for supporting EdCamp. So for these two, specifically for this, kind of, it seems like it's a segue, but for these two wind trainers, for sure, they're learning more and bringing more back to our district. As well as, I believe when you and I spoke that Saturday, it was really about our camera, which I can't remember the name of it. It is escaping me, but our camera that follows the voice of the teacher, right? And we were discussing how that really is, and at that same time, we were talking about how does this support our Tier 1 implementation of our curriculum in K-5 when we are creating videos that can be a library of professional development for our teachers, but also bring teachers from multiple schools into the classroom of a teacher that is doing wonderful things for parts and components of our curriculum. And so there was that, as well as yes, there is a plan for all of our ed tools to be in one spot for our WIN trainers to support our staff with. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, because in those conversations, I was also having side conversations, and there were several tools outside of just those cameras that teachers were like, they were connecting with each other like, oh, there's that, oh, how do I bring that? And it wasn't tied to the camera. So I'm glad that there's going to be a plan in place to
Yes.
get that information out there.
Yeah, as well as using the tools within units. So that is a part of our formal plan, is how do we use the tools within our tier one, not as a separate entity? And how do we make it make sense for what we're using and when and where to use it? So yes, Ms. Lensing, thank you.
Yeah, even applications such as like OneNote. But my next question is tied to M, and so that is the teaching through problem solving. My question on this one is that it says the significance for WPS as WPS closes the gap in achievement for math, and it goes to talk through how teachers who have gone through this training have seen those successes. I don't see any data around which schools that may apply to that we can look to see that come to fruition or be proved. And I don't see if the students maintain or are stable, right? Because if it's not concretized and they can't carry it forward, then it's not truly learned.
Yes. And we can share the data. The data just came in as far as analyzing it for I believe we're in year 3, but with our second cohort of schools, and the schools that are a participant of this learning, of this pedagogy, of this way of teaching, they do have higher scores in using our NWA. We're getting our IAR in. So we will share that with you, Ms. Lensing. And that's just school-based. And I know the second part was students. So I'm going to reach out to you specifically so we can run the numbers with students and their attainment over time, I believe you said, with math. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm interested in that too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ms.
You're
Rice de
welcome.
los Sanchez, my only ask is get that information to Nicholas, because what one board member, all board members receive is just one of our protocols.
Sure,
So if
absolutely.
you get that to Nick, then we'll get
Yeah,
that to everyone.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. Ms. Fabian?
This is like a compliment rolled into a question. I know.
I love that hybrid.
To Ms. Lensing's point, we're always looking for that data. So whoever put together that presentation for the renewal of school links, thank you for that, because it did detail all those student analytics, so we can see literally how many
Yes.
students are going in, how
That was
many
Ms.
times they're
Fulton.
going
Yeah, she
on.
did a great job.
So Ms. Fulton, well, she knows I already love her, but this
Yeah.
is like great work. And if we could, in the future, probably send that out to others who are doing similar requests, so they can kind of use that as a template and a guide to see this is the type of things that the board is really looking for
No, that's great
to ensure
feedback.
that's being useful.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
when they're looking for similar items.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding expeditionary learning? Okay, I was there.
That was hard to hear, Ms. Hannah. Any questions around?
I was on,
Where are we?
I was on P, because I thought you said in general, that we were
Yeah,
skipping through.
anything.
So I was all the way down to P.
Anything that you need.
Sorry. So the other like broad stroke component that I was going to touch on ties back to what Ms. Fabian said. So essentially, again, with the renewals, like I understand components like Gaggle, we wouldn't necessitate that information, but I did note as well, similar to what Ms. Fabian has said, is giving us the data around those tools, because that's going to ensure that we are being accountable and transparent with these dollars, that we're really monitoring what's going on, and it's not just, well, we've had it, so we're going to keep doing it. So I appreciate that board member Fabian had brought that up.
All right. Can move the agenda up, please, Mr. White. Okay. Let's say M. Anything regarding school links, approval of Network for College Success, National Freshman Success Institute, revision of previously approved EAB District Leadership Forum, partnership agreement. Is the program being used, Superintendent? The EA?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to speak for you. Sorry. Yeah, myself and Jason, as well as other members of the team, meet with EAB monthly. They share a wealth of knowledge. They connect us with other districts across the country, some that are like Waukegan, some that are different. But it has been a really great partnership. It's been really fruitful and helpful in gathering information and providing us with meta-analyses and a lot of information to help support a lot of the work we're doing around science of reading, middle school redesign, high school transformation, and on a variety of topics.
Yeah,
So
and as,
it's been really helpful, yes.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And seeing how you talked about the middle school redesign,
Yes.
I really, really wish that you all would look at the research regarding middle school students and the time that the schools start. And
That's a good
I am
one,
so
yeah.
hoping that we are going to move the time up a little bit to you, okay, go ahead. Because
You
you
mean
look
down?
What-
The research states that it should be
It
later.
should be later.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about, that it should be
You're talking
later.
about bell start time, not amount of minutes, right?
I'm
Yes,
saying,
she's talking about balance.
I'm saying that our middle school kids are suffering because of that early school time,
Ms. Hannah,
that start time.
that's been a conversation probably for about 5 years now, and it's always an issue with transportation, with busing on getting elementary, middle school, just the number of buses. That's one of the issues. A second issue that came up is a lot of our parents want our older kids to get out earlier so that they could pick up the younger kids after school. I'm not saying that those are reasons why we shouldn't do it. These are just conversations and pieces that we have been playing with for some time. But yes, to your point, that we are very aware of what the research states. We know that we're not aligned with that, and it is an ongoing conversation on how we can get there.
Okay, good, because, look, I dealt with it last 3 years, oh my God. And, yeah, and I
If we
started
could snap our
looking at-
fingers and do it, we would, but it's a systemic, it would require systemic change and I think a lot of planning, but
Well, I
that doesn't
would-
mean it's a no, but I have to look at, he's trying to run out of the room right now, so.
Yeah.
LeBaron, yeah,
And
he's,
I will
But
say,
I
this
had-
has been a conversation previous to even this superintendent, that it's been
Yeah.
ongoing because of that. Like, if you have to choose who's coming home sooner than later, parents are choosing for their middle schoolers to be home sooner than the younger kids.
Yeah, I understand that,
We
but
gotta
it's
provide more
not good
after-school
for,
opportunities.
That's what I was just gonna
and then
say,
we can
so,
close that
but-
gap.
So,
yeah, and we just have to, we also cannot move past the fact that it is not beneficial for those middle school students. Okay, I understand parents and, all of that, I get that, okay? But it's not beneficial academically, mentally, socially, emotionally
All right, you're-
for those middle school students.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in total agreement with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the only other, I don't have any other question. I mean, if you all don't have any, I got one question in reference to the approval of the purchase of furniture and supplies for 3 full-day pre-K classrooms. Okay, my question is, are we putting the horse or the cart before the horse?
I'm gonna let Roz come up.
Because,
Come on, Roz.
yeah, because the
You're the
reason I'm
pre-K
saying
coordinator.
that,
Yeah, let's go
we
pre-K
have not,
team.
we
Let's
haven't
hear it.
approved to do that yet.
And Dr.
But we
Caesar,
have
I see
talked
Dr.
about the
Caesar coming
enrollment.
up.
We've talked about the enrollment.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about that, but it has not come before the board for
That we
approval,
had already approved.
for us to do it. To actually implement a full day program.
I thought that was part of the grant. We've
Right.
already.
What do we? Okay.
And Oakdale was gonna open one up too.
No, we're talking about full day kindergarten.
Will those classrooms be full, I think is the question.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The classrooms will be full. And our enrollment right now is 880. That's the number that we have in our grant. And we will still have 880 students. We've really processed how we can do this. So, Roz?
And we actually have a current wait list of 45 kids waiting for the full day program.
I'd also like to say that we piloted this at Carmen Buckner, and we've seen a highlight of District 60 on how successful, I just trying to recollect for the board on the full day kindergarten. And I also know that it was, I mean, I'm sorry, pre-K. Thank you, Ms. Hannah.
Epic.
I apologize. We've had a couple graduations for the past 2 days, and Ms. Hannah's been, so pre-K. So we have full day at Carmen Buckner. We've seen a District 60 highlight of our full day pre-K at Carmen Buckner. And it was also, I'm going to say, a wish list request of the board that we continue to expand on full day pre-K. I know Ms. Lenzing's on the line also, who also talked about benefits of that for families instead of the half days. So we're trying to expand on that, and that's what you see here. Thank you.
And you're taking advantage of all of those extra grants that came through or that are coming through for next year?
Oh, yeah, because the governor is,
The governor has been very generous
He
on
is,
preschool.
absolutely. He's pumping that money into early childhood. So look, it would behoove you all to get to looking, them grants are out there.
Well, it seems like this will be split with the all early childhood block grant. By the time that we vote on it, will we know the split?
What do you mean by the
Cost.
split,
The
Miss
costs
Lin-
are being
Oh,
shared. It says
the
the
cost,
cost, yeah.
okay.
Cost sharing.
Do you know that, Dr. Caesar? And I do want to call out that we have Principal Miss Sessions here. I'm sorry I
Yeah.
didn't see you. I apologize. That was not intentional.
So we do know that Glen Flora has put it in their SBB as well as Lightfoot. So we are waiting to hear about that.
Okay.
Because we do want to look at the support staff that we have that's going to be providing services for those full day students. Because when we look at full day, we're looking at our most at-risk students to be in those classrooms. So we are waiting to hear about that, but right now, we feel that we can support it through the grant if we do some other twisting and shifting.
It'd be really nice to know the demographics too by the time we vote on it, because of what we had discussed previously in the other.
So we're looking at, we have one monolingual class at Carmen. We'll have one at Glen Flora. We'll have a bilingual class at Glen Flora and one at Carmen. And the class at Lightfoot will be monolingual.
I just want to say that kudos to you because Castlemeyer's got the same thing going on, but I know a lot of parents got kids at Castlemeyer trying to get them over there with y'all because they're hearing that y'all doing so well.
Thank you.
Good job, team.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know. Thank you, pre-K team.
All right, so if the board doesn't have any other questions
Well, I
regarding.
do. Why? Why?
Oh, why? Okay.
Okay, I guess my question, Dr. Cesario, on why.
On letter
policy
Y,
52
agenda item
yeah,
Y.
Oh,
item Y.
I thought you were asking a general question about why.
No.
I'm like,
For clarity.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Policy
Why?
5212, has been changed or combined with, so we have grading and final exams, and we had a short presentation on that previously. And this is a big change because it made sense when I heard that, we weren't going to go down below 50% on a grade, even with an F. So the students they wouldn't get down in a hole and not be
Right.
able to work themselves out.
Right.
But there's a lot more in that policy, and I wonder if, since it's a big policy, what kind of feedback are we hearing from teachers? How are they accepting this? Do they have concerns?
So I can't speak, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so do they have concerns, and what are those concerns? Because I know when we made the big change, for graduation.
credits.
Yeah.
What? We had, the number of credits. It seemed like there was a lot of pushback, even from students. When I went to the Mikvah Challenge, we heard a lot of students saying this was not a good thing. Students don't care anymore. We heard from some teachers, students don't care anymore. I don't want to hear that when this is implemented. I wonder if we've gone around and talked to teachers, listened to their concerns, and are we on board? Are they on board with this big change? And I'm sure there's some benefits, but I also want to know what their concerns are, what the drawbacks are.
So it's interesting that you bring up the Mikvah Challenge, because I noticed the same thing, and I had a conversation about that and with the students, and let them know that I was primarily I moved that.
Yeah.
And I moved it for a specific reason, that it was moved during a time during the pandemic, so we could be more equitable to those students that were impacted
But
by
even when we said
that.
that,
So
even
no, I know, and
then
now
they were still
and what my answer to the students was, what, you're absolutely right. We need to revisit that, right? So it doesn't mean that it's static. With the other piece, with the 50%, I wholeheartedly agree with that notion that it would keep students from feeling like they could not come back from that. And so I can't speak in general about every teacher or all the teachers, but I did have a conversation with some of the union leadership about this and their feelings about it, and they said that they had done it before. This is not the first time. It's not something new. And here's the thing that I'm going to say, and we can go into a lot more detail, but I know that we want to move on because of the weather. But it doesn't just happen. This is one piece of a larger picture. It has to come with a whole discussion about what grades mean and how you're grading and what counts as a grade. So if you're counting 50% of your grade is homework, and if they don't turn in 50% of it and you're getting a 50%, then it doesn't make sense. But we should be looking at how proficient students are towards standards. Therefore, we should be looking at the assessments, and the assessment should be the bulk of what they're graded on. If they miss an assessment, if they do poorly on an assessment, if they decide because of mental health for a day or a period of time that they don't want to do it, they should have that ability to come out of that without having a 0. To start at 50 gives them a head up on it. Right. So we can go back and forth, and I respect folks whose opinion is, well, that gives students a carte blanche. What I would say is we need to look without a deficit mindset, but understanding that we do have high expectations for students, and that I think that students would rise to the occasion, and that the students that this would benefit, it would give them an opportunity. Those that are again, maybe they're having difficulty at the beginning of a semester, and that happens. Kids get behind after a week or two of high school, and that's it. They turn it off. And so that's my feeling on that. I know there's a lot more in there. I don't have it all memorized, but I am definitely in favor of it. Is everyone? No. Did we solicit input from a variety of folks? We most certainly did. And is any policy or practice that we have going to be applicable or appreciated by every single individual? No. But I think we have to look at what's best for the whole. And that's where we're at. And this is something that we're going to evaluate over time and continue to work. But I want to reiterate one point.
Right.
This is one action as a part of a whole review of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why, right? Those are important questions to ask.
Through an equity lens.
Right, right, but there is.
Most definitely. I mean, that's the, without even saying the word equity, that's what it is. When we're providing opportunities for those that are in need when they need it. They all might not need it, and that's the point.
And it's a philosophical conversation,
It is.
too.
It's definitely a philosophical conversation.
How do we respond, though, to, for instance, maybe a teacher who says, you're tying my hands. A student doesn't even have to come anymore. He doesn't have to be in my class. He doesn't have to do anything, and he's still going to get 50%.
I don't think that's true.
Sorry, just because we were a part of the discussion, and there's a lot of things that I feel I won't draw it out, but you know, one of the conversations that we had in the Equity Advisory Council from one of our instructors, I thought was very poignant. Did I agree with everything? Not necessarily, but I understood what he was saying, and what he shared was that you know, we want to set students up for success, but we also want them to be very aware of how unfair the real world can be, right? Because once you fail and you get set back, it's really hard unless you have that discipline, unless you have momentum, unless you have XYZ to rewrite your course, right? And I think that happens with more challenges the older that you get. But I think that is actually why inequity exists, right? And why we want to mitigate that at an early stage. And so to the research that Dr. Weber and I forget the other gentleman's name, Dr. Vosso and Mr. Weber, right? I mixed them. Okay, yes. The research that they had conducted in their focus group was very illuminating in that regard, because what they found was that if a kid gives up the first, second, or first month of the semester, that you're not going to get them at all throughout the course of the rest of the year. And so I think that this conversation is a way for us to shift our culture in the classroom, and for us to have more, genuine relationships between our teachers and the students that they're educating. Because I think what we'll find is that, and this is kind of how I've articulated it for myself and for people who, even had reservations about the credits, is that a 50% is still failing.
Yes.
You have to pass the class.
Right.
And that there are certain standards that we expect the students to meet, but this mitigates, certain students from waiting until the very end of the school year to turn in their homework, and then just, write stuff down, complete questions that they really didn't know how to answer throughout the course of the year. So I think that is a more it's a truer testament to what they're actually learning than, arbitrarily saying like, well, you didn't complete X number of assignments, there's no hope for you, so you gotta redo the whole thing all over again. So I think that it's gonna rub people the wrong way, but it's okay to be uncomfortable in this regard, because I think students need to know that if they get a F in one assignment, they still have a responsibility to understand that material and go on to the next phase. And if they are getting the material, to just be more consistent in turning stuff in, or,
It builds momentum.
It builds momentum.
It really does build momentum. If you feel like there's no hope, especially freshman year, you talked about the first
gone.
few weeks, it's done.
Yep.
And we know that a freshman on track is an indicator of persistence, of how well they're going to do the rest, the graduation rate. All of those things are impacted where if a student is off track within that first few weeks of school. And so, and it does help to build that momentum. If I know that I'm starting at zero, it's daunting.
No matter what you do until you get a
That's right.
99%, that it's not
That's
going
right.
to change
And if you're a
anything.
C student, or if you're having difficulty with a subject, then you give up. And we don't want kids to give up. And that's all kids.
Yeah,
right?
that's all
So,
kids.
yeah.
Ms. Fabian.
Well, to your point, even if you get a 99%, a 0 and a 99 is still a 50% when average, so you're still failing.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to get out that hole.
Mhm.
But when we have a significant change like this, all change is difficult, and I think this is something that Ms. Lensing has also stressed, is just that communication piece, that if and when we do approve the final policy, we just also have a communication plan on how we get that message out there, so that not only students understand, but so do their families, and so do our teachers, and so that there is that, opportunity for that open forum of that feedback.
Yeah, I just think it has to be aligned. It can't just be an act by itself. It has to be consistent with other things that we're doing. And if we look at the high school transformation plan, the work with College Board, the work with Network for College Success, the work that we've been doing with One Goal, all of these things are serving to really support one another. They're all research-based. And, I think the other piece is it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, and we don't expect to change everyone's mind on this. But what we do need to do is continue to work to underscore what it is that we're doing and to reinforce that through other activities. We didn't just move to this overnight. It was step by step, and it's a process. And so I think we have to continue to communicate that. But we can send memos all day long. The best kind of communication is when you're reiterating it through experiential opportunities, such as participating in professional development, having discussions in instructional leadership team meetings, and in grade level team meetings and department meetings, where we're actually having these discussions and then experiencing it. So, point taken.
Expand that discussion to the community at large.
Most definitely, but that's where these pieces have to happen. They cannot just happen, we're going to give a memo out. It's ineffective.
Okay, Ms.
Do a little bit
Lindsay?
of everything. Yeah.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Riddle, just from my end, what I'm hearing is that some of the teachers are feeling, and I don't know the number, right? But some of the concerns I'm hearing are that, well, this is similar to the 17 credits where students aren't going to apply themselves, or they're going to manipulate the system, or we have structures in place that already address this by, teachers themselves going after students and making, not going after in a negative way, but trying to reach out to students to say, hey, you can retake this, and have multiple opportunities to boost their grade in that way. And my main piece is that I think, now that we have this policy out here, and tying back to what Ms. Gonzalez and what Ms. Fabian has already said, is that we need to do this better than how the 17 credits went. And I think, Vice President and Superintendent, it would be good if we had a meeting scheduled where it was just focused on this policy to tease out some of those concerns. To Dr. Cesario's point, it's not going to make everyone happy. It is a philosophical shift, and it is putting equity at the forefront. But if these systems are going to work, and we need to have staff buy-in. Yes. We need to make sure that everyone at least understands the philosophy, even if they don't fully agree with it. Right. They can get their big questions answered in a safe way, right? Because this can be a big shift for some. Yeah. And it is an old school way to say, if you don't do anything, you get a 0. And all of a sudden saying 50, the perspective is, well, we're giving them credit for doing nothing. But ultimately, it's still an F. They still don't pass. They just have better access to change the course for themselves and get a separate opportunity. Whereas in the workforce, you can have redos. You're not automatically fired for everything you fail to do, right? So I think it would be good before we get into a second reading, allowing some sort of dialogue to happen so we're not repeating the mistakes of what happened with the 17 credits.
Right.
And
can I?
Definitely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You want to
go
first?
from the audience. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that we really have to be champions of the policy that is put forth through the Equity Advisory Council, because We have experts that are reviewing some of the changes that we are making. And can communication always be better? Absolutely. But I think what we often get wrong as a collective, and when I'm speaking to the collective, I am speaking about our community, is that the way that we talk about our students and our strategies for leveling the playing field are very deficit minded. We think that they don't try hard. We think that they're not up to the task when we are thinking about the strategies and the policies that we're changing. And I think that really, that's really at the heart of what this policy suggestion really is. It's about having the opportunity for students not to give up right away and to build that resilience, which we know helps students who have been historically marginalized the most. And I feel like once we have that message from the board level, from the teachers, from the students themselves, that there will be a resounding shift. So, I want to definitely defend the 17 credits narrative, because I definitely think that could have been better. But I also felt like it was in the moment. It was in the moment, and it was in the clash of something that is very, I think, fundamentally flawed in logic. We think that the more credits, the smarter the kid will be, and that's not always the case.
But that was not the reason why we changed to 24 credits. We wanted our students to have a higher expectation, higher than the state said. And our students were making that. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, you had 24.
I had way more than that.
Yes, yeah.
That's my
But that-
point.
Yeah.
But that's also her point. That they'll still struggle.
I could have graduated
Excuse me,
early
we
and
can't
then.
all talk at the same time.
Yeah.
The 24 credits was put there for a purpose.
Yes.
And it was brought down. I was not a proponent of it. I'm still not a proponent of it.
Yeah.
And that's that part what you were saying, right? But I want to go back to Dr. Sario and a big ask that I'm asking. Our teachers, we have got to get the buy-in from our teachers, not the union leadership. And I know that the union leadership is the voice, supposedly the voice of the membership, right? However, we need to focus on the teachers and getting them to buy in to all of these changes.
I want to be very clear. They didn't agree with me. They didn't agree with me. I just want to be honest. Like I was being, there was a difference of opinion. That's what I was highlighting. They did not agree with me. I respected what they had to say. They disagreed with me. I want to make that very clear, because I'm not speaking on the union's behalf or saying that they endorse this. What I'm saying, with the few people that I did speak with, who happened to be union leadership, that did not agree with what we were saying. But it was a very respectful conversation. I shared my sentiment, and I think we're thinking about, this impacts all kinds of kids. A kid has a concussion at the beginning of the year from
Or
playing
loses
football,
a family member at the beginning of the year.
this is, and it is a serious issue. One last piece to this. I'm sorry, Superintendent, but when we look at our standards-based practices in the elementary, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is no 0. So this is consistent with that practice already. It's again standards-based. Everything that we're doing is aligned to the college anchor standards. So if we're talking about standards-based, and that's a whole other discussion, but this is consistent with that. So if we can move away from its 50% and it's a 1, then it's consistent with that. So I'll leave it at that. And I know there's a couple
Dr.
of questions.
Cesario, can I, before we,
additional-
I just want to clarify something for the public. The minimum is 17 credits. That does not mean that you cannot have a maximum of 22, 24, 28. What the minimum is. And I believe this year, and Ms. Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, this year for the graduating class of 2024, only 5 students out of the whole graduating class had only 17 credits. The rest of them had majority of them. So only 5. So that just puts some perspective that it's not, the 17 is not the maximum. It is the minimum. So I think it's how we look at things and words matter. And I don't want to take any more time. You've been so patient. I'm turning it back to
really
Scott.
have. Thank
you
you so much.
Thank you for acknowledging my patience, because this whole conversation, you've all been discussing teacher buy-in. Hi, I'm John Hazers. I'm a math teacher at Waukegan High School. I am also an elected representative from the Teachers Union. So Mr. Riddle's original question was, what feedback have we gotten from teachers? And I can speak to that very clearly. No teachers that I've spoken to knew anything about this 50% policy before last week. It has set the building on fire, and we've had many debates. We have had discussions about what this means, why the policy is, and we've had some good discussions. We've also had many discussions, and most teachers feel that there are a number of ethical concerns that arise with this. A number of teachers would suggest that this policy creates inequities in our grading systems. There's also a question, and I can't remember who it was, I think Ms. Lensing brought it up. Part of this is also, so there's a lot of discussion about that early 0, then it's difficult for the kid to come back. Every teacher I know has something in place to address that already. The only way a kid gets a 0 on the first test is if they didn't take it. Every teacher will chase that kid to make up that test. If it's a poor or a low score, we will chase that kid to retake that test. We will offer multiple retakes. I've had it, my first test this year did not go well across the entire class. So instead of moving on to the next unit, we spent time in class reviewing, doing retakes, doing corrections, and then doing the retakes. So there's a question, first of all, is this policy necessary? Then there's also the question of, well, it creates many other ethical concerns. And when I've discussed these ethical concerns with people who, the administrators you mentioned that were on this, they mentioned more changes that had to be made to the grading policy. We needed to go with a decaying system for these things. We need to change the grading. Newer tests need to be weighted more than the older tests. So there's a whole gamut of things that we have not really looked at. And also, I kind of feel, because I offer those opportunities for a kid to make up a test, because I offer those opportunities for a kid to retake a test, I am putting an onus on that student. I don't feel like I need to give that student a 50% because I believe that the student will come in and make up that test and retake that test as quickly as possible. I think to suggest that a 0 will drag the kid down says that we don't believe in our kids. We don't expect that they will take advantage of the opportunities that we are putting forward for them to take ownership over their own grades. We don't believe that. We're going to give them a 50% because otherwise this is going to drag them down the whole semester because they're not going to do a thing and they're not going to take advantage of any of the opportunities that I give them. Some of this is my own take. If we want to know how the school is, we had a meeting at Washington campus yesterday to discuss this. I've put out a survey. The survey is still going served. Currently, 90% of the teachers at Waukegan High School do not support this policy. 83% said no. 7% right now said, I like the idea, but I don't want it to be done as a board policy. Earlier, Mr. Cesario said that this is a part of a bigger picture of things that are going on. We agree with that as teachers. But what we want to see is we do not think this is the place to start. We do not think that the first thing we need to do is address the grading policy and we especially do not want this codified as a board policy that we will have to live forward. We want to see other things. We want to see attendance addressed. We want to see Tier 1 instruction addressed. We want to see Tier 2 instruction addressed. We want to understand what supports that we can already offer these kids, and what we want to understand. We feel kids are being placed incorrectly in the wrong classes, which is causing them. Once those things are done and we've seen improvement there, I think then we will be more likely to actually address is there something wrong with the grading policy. Right now, the teachers don't feel that that is the number one issue. And I appreciate Ms. Lensing saying earlier that we need to have much more discussion on this. I would ask that the board not entertain a second reading on this policy until there has been time to actually talk to teachers. Right now I have a ton of information that Mr. Cesario does not have. I understand that there was a variety of people on that team, but we have a lot of, we can work this out. I can be convinced, but no one has made an effort to convince me for this. So I would ask the board not entertain a second reading on this, or if you do, if you would ask for that one statement to be struck. Because honestly, there's nothing else in there that's controversial. Everything else in there we're okay with, about keeping attendance out of grades, about offering projects instead of final exams. All of that is okay. So we would just ask if there is a second reading, that be struck. I ask that now. I think I wasn't prepared. I didn't see this item on the agenda. If I had seen it, there would be a lot more people here right now to discuss this. Voting on anything right now. Right, I know. I didn't see that up on. I agree. So I didn't see that on the agenda. I would have rallied a lot more people, but a lot more teachers are prepared to come speak to the board regarding their concerns of this policy.
And you know what? And seeing
just
that.
to tie in, sorry.
Oh. Okay, because I hear Ms. Lensing too. Let Ms. Fabian, and then we'll come back to you, Ms. Lensing.
Thank you.
So I had another thought previous to when I was raising my hand, but just because of what you said, 90% of the teachers that you surveyed said no. So could you share with us that survey results, like screenshots, so we
yes,
know
I
the total
intend
number?
to do that. I just opened the survey yesterday, but I already
Perfect.
have 20 to 25% of the high school teachers have already, but I'd like a little bit more time before.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yes,
no,
absolutely.
There's also
90% sounds like 90% of all high school teachers, but it's 90% of 25 teachers right now.
which
So
is
it's
25% is a
big
large
deal.
representation
Yeah.
sample. And the survey also does include comments from teachers regarding where they actually were able to write specific concerns.
Perfect. So if you could share that with Nick to share with the board, that would be really great to see, because that's the type of thing that I'm saying.
That
is
we
I'm
need
not
to
saying send
see.
out a memo. Is how do we communicate?
Yeah.
Yes.
How do we have open forums? How do we have dialogue with stakeholders at large? But I'm glad Adriana had said what she stated. That's what I was raising my hand for, was to say just that. I think part of professional development needs to include asset-based thinking and how we speak about our kids, and having that deficit language of all the time of, if we don't hold them to this high expectation, they're not going to strive for it. I think they will, and I think that they can. And we have a lot of students, and we saw at our graduation how many students had all these cords and ribbons and just all the outstanding things that they do.
But
So I
even
think
if they didn't,
even if they didn't,
they are
and
still amazing.
Absolutely, 100%. But what I'm saying is that we need to get rid of that deficit-based thinking all the time that our students can't and won't. And you saw it from a different perspective, and you saw it as, if we say that we give them a 50%, we're saying that they can and won't. So you saw it also from an asset-based thinking of, yes, they'll strive to the top and do it. And I think, so we're both trying to say the same thing of,
both saying the
we
same
need
thing.
to talk about our children, our students, in an asset-based mind frame, and saying that they won't because they won't. It's just not nice to say, and I don't feel that way about our students. I think they do strive, but the more opportunities that we can give, especially for our marginalized students, because we see it in our data. Every time we do our data granularly, we see it in our data of who is the one struggling consistently, and how are we creating opportunities to level the playing field.
Okay, and Ms. Lensing, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just want to be very clear that I was on the committee that this policy was developed on. So I did get a deeper look at some of the pieces, more so than the overview that the team was able to provide. I was also in the equity committee and hearing more feedback about the policy again, with regard to the work. So I'm in full support of this policy. But I think, and it goes back, right, to that buy-in piece, that communication piece. When we're doing such a big shift like this, we need to provide opportunities for that communication. Yes, not a memo, listening to what teachers have to say. And I think it would be beneficial for the board to attend, not to participate, right? Because we have our debate on that dais in these meetings and we ultimately make the decision. But we should go to listen, because while the survey results are going to give pieces as to what teachers are thinking, we're not hearing their fleshed out conversations and their rationale. So I'm hoping that that town hall can be had, because that dialogue is what's going to, one, boost morale, boost buy-in, and then really create understanding so that we are providing the most equitable environment for our students to succeed as possible. But if the board members attend, I just want to make sure we're there with our listening ears so that we can get answers to questions like Mr. Riddle's.
I agree with that, but can I just add that we
Okay,
include
the
families?
final question, Ms. Fabian.
I'm just saying, I agree with what her statement is, but if we can include families into that forum, because we also need parent buy-in.
Oh, yeah, I'm not limiting to that. I'm just saying that it should be an open forum, right? Like a town hall isn't just for that, but board members should be quiet. Sorry for interrupting you, Ms. Fabian.
Yeah, and, okay, final question.
Final comment. So just a couple of comments there. First of all, so as Ms. Lensing pointed out, that she wants to hear the conversations with the teachers. She may not have heard me before, but that survey isn't just yes or no. There are points in there about where teachers will actually state their concerns. I know Ms. Lensing stated as a member of the committee that she's entirely in favor of this policy, and I'm very much not in favor, so I look forward to engaging her in a debate to see who can change whose mind. And also in reference, Ms. Fabian discussed...
Mr. Hasner, that's not productive for our students.
All right.
To debate and try to approach it that way. But I'm more than happy to engage in a conversation, but I don't want it to be antagonistic or charged. It should be a calm conversation.
I apologize if it came across that way. I think you missed my body language, that some humor was intended to that comment, some jest.
Noted, thank you.
Okay. And in reference then just finally to Ms. Fabian's comment where she talked about our expectations for students, I think a huge part of education is not just our expectations for the students, but to teach the students to have expectations for themselves.
Absolutely. Very good. Okay, and if we are, I don't know what board president will recommend for this, or superintendent.
It's noted.
Okay, and so my last comment on this topic, I want teacher buy-in. As long as the teachers will buy in, things will work. And so, and I'm interested in the survey that was taken, okay, because we have to work like a well-oiled machine, and all of the wheels have to connect if our students are going to benefit. And so if we got a wheel that's missing some teeth, it is not working properly. So that's the last comment. Now we can go to the presentation.
Sure. So I just want to say I wholeheartedly agree that the conversation should be had. I also think that it's okay to disagree or have differing opinions. And I think that we've been engaging in very collaborative conversations. We don't always agree, but the nature of our conversations are very respectful. So yeah, look forward to having the discussion. All right, I'm going to ask Dr. Nault and Miss Amanda Patty to come up to review Superintendent's Goal number 1. So, Jason.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Before you go into that, I'm going to just lay some context. So we're going to be looking at this during my evaluation, but the reason why I didn't know you guys were going to label it like this and should have looked at graduation. But one of the reasons is it gives a culmination of extended learning opportunities before after summer school, but it also will give you that data on BAM and WOW and some other counseling services that we said we would revisit quarterly, and so this will just end us for the year. So I just want to give that context of everything that's in here. So on that note, Dr. Note, you can go ahead and move forward.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, everyone. As the Superintendent and Dr. Cesario mentioned, we're going to give a quick update, progress on Goal 1 related to the Superintendent's performance goals. We're going to talk about some of the highlights and then discuss some next steps as it relates to this particular goal. I'm not going to read this goal to you, it's pretty lengthy, but at the heart of the goal really essentially is that the academic supports and programs team is providing opportunities for students to have increased instructional time by offering different opportunities before school, after school, during the summer, et cetera, as well as supporting students social emotionally with different partners and programs that we have available in our buildings. In terms of how are we measuring, or how is the superintendent measuring this goal? First and foremost, we're going to look at the percentage of students, obviously, that are receiving tutoring support in the district, with the goal of increasing that by 3%. We're going to look at the percentage of students that are engaged in programs with our SEL partners, with an increase there by 5%. And then you've heard a lot of conversation over the last several months related to the pre-K to 12 district literacy plan with a focus on the science of reading. That'll be a huge component of this goal as well. Next slide, please.
Oh, can we get next slide?
Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Lee. Thank you. That top bullet is a duplicate, but the second bullet there, you've heard, I think Dr. Cesario and Dr. Cuevas mention about a process for us to evaluate the effectiveness of software, contracts, products related to things that we offer in the ASAP division. This is through that Learn platform. So a part of this goal would be utilizing that platform to make sure that we are obviously maximizing district resources and that everything that we're offering is more effective and more efficient as well. And then the last part is these quarterly reports that we typically get from some of our vendors that speak to some of the SEL services that students are receiving. We'll measure it by looking at that data in those reports as well.
And Dr. Note, this platform is something that a goal was based off for the previous year, and we're continuing to utilize it. So I do know that Ms. Lenzing and Ms. Fabian were not with us last year. So if you'd like to sit down, I'd like to extend the opportunity to walk you through what that looks like and how we utilize that for effectiveness. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Next couple slides speak to just some of the tasks that we've completed so far related to this goal. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Patty, who will speak a little bit about some of the tutoring.
And I'm just going to jump in, guys, with you guys, okay? Because
Absolutely,
I'm going to
yeah.
be doing this one.
Yep. Good evening, Board, Board Vice President, Superintendent, colleagues. The next set of information, and there is a link in the third line that shows and highlights all of the different opportunities that have been developed by our school-based leadership to increase the types of activities that are provided both before school, during school, and after school, to provide students with additional opportunities for connecting to their peers, to have opportunities to connect with the adults in the school. Sometimes they are academic in nature, tutoring, things like that. There is also just clubs and activities that help that connection with an adult in the school, a peer group within the school. And so on that link underneath that third row, you can see some of the different types of clubs and activities that are provided. That does provide a robust list of all. The chart just has a highlight of some of them that are offered. We also have included information related to our summer programming. That second link on the last line, one slide, yeah, thank you, Lee, does give you an overview in terms of the where the summer programming is going to be located, as well as the amount of students that we are anticipating participating in our summer programming.
And our goal is to try to ensure that every student is connected to something, whether it's before school, after school, within school, whether it's Saturday, sports clubs. I see Mr. Gonzalez in the back, you know, the JAMS program, middle school sports, so that we constantly have a touch on our kids outside of just their academic day, right? That we're also supporting them in other areas. And I do believe that the administration has done a very nice job. As a mom of an 8th grader, previous 8th grader, shall I say, I know that he would get to school at 7 in the morning and probably leave about 6, 7 at night, constantly playing sports or in different activities. And so we really hope that our parents take advantage of those opportunities, whether it's for academic enrichment or tutoring services, extracurricular and sports, clubs, media, etc. Those opportunities are there for you, and there are many, many opportunities for the summer programming. So please look into those. I just wanted to throw out.
Next slide. No, Mr. White, if you don't mind, could you go to the next one? I think it is a little different. There's not a...
No, it was.
There we go. Okay, thank you, Lee. Thank you. The top here is related to our Chapter 1 High Impact Tutoring. This is the company that goes in and tutors our students one-on-one instruction 2 to 3 times per week, focusing on expanding that. This year we went from kindergarten and 1st grade, and now we go all the way up from kinder through 3rd grade. There is a linked presentation in that first line to explore further into the outcomes and number of students that are being serviced across all 15 of our elementary schools. The focus on reading foundational skills, some of the middle of year data that we saw as a result of that, and the gains that we are seeing across the students who receive services. So that information is also available. I'll turn it over now to Dr. Nault for BAM, WOW, and Jocelyn Center.
Dr. Nault,
Yes.
can we click on the hyperlink for BAM and WOW just so the
Yep.
board can see an example of it, please?
Yep. So what you'll see for the next 2 sections of this slide are our partners BAM WOW and Jocelyn Center. And per the board's request, these organizations have to submit quarterly reports to us so we can measure their impact. And in these reports, you'll see data that they provided to us. This report that you see here for BAM WOW was from February. They are in the process of compiling their final end of year report as we speak. So we'll be getting that in the next couple of weeks. Not going to read through the entire report for you, but summarizing, you can see that BAM and WOW throughout the course of this year has serviced over 1,000 students, pretty split, about 500 or so in BAM and 500 or so in WOW. It talks about some of the services they provide in terms of either individual or group counseling, sessions with students. We have counselors, both BAM and WOW, at the middle schools and the high schools. Again, just so, as a refresher, so you know where those counselors are located. And then outside of the individual services and group services and counseling that they provide, they also do a lot of things outside of the school with our students, take them on different variety of learning experiences in the city, different field trips, events, celebrating them, etc. If you were at any of the middle school ceremonies the last couple of days, you saw some students that had the BAM and WOW stoles. So they're proud of being a part of that group and part of that organization, and it's definitely had an impact if you look at this report. Jocelyn Center is also linked there, that report. And Jocelyn Center is really, a lot of their focus has been on providing our staff professional development on the mental health first aid training. You can see on that link, it kind of breaks down the numbers of staff that have been trained so far. Yeah, if you click that link, Lee, on the Jocelyn Center, it should bring up that report. Thank you. You'll see the number of staff that have been trained over the last year through Jocelyn Center, as well as some of the schools that they're currently servicing with counselors on one of the slides as well. Currently, we have 234 students that are being serviced primarily through individual support. And a lot of times those students are referred through those school site-based MTSS teams to those counselors. So they've been a great partnership, a great partner with us so far as well, and we continue to look forward to using them in the future. You can see the breakdown for the students on the one slide that are being serviced at each school, and some next steps there in terms of continued staff development to get all staff trained for that mental health first aid toolkit, and then helping us with our MTSS processes.
Dr. North, a quick question.
Yes.
Now, the reports that BAM and WOW submit, these are strictly our students. They are not from other
School districts
in where they work
Chicago.
in Chicago and stuff, because the last time I was looking, I don't know what happened, but those numbers were integrated into the numbers for Waukegan. And I just want to make sure that those numbers are tried and true for Waukegan and not a combination of numbers from Waukegan to the other school districts.
Good question, Ms. Hannah. Yes, the quarterly reports that they give us, like the one that you see linked here, is our Waukegan WPS 60 data. They do release, Youth Guidance does have an annual report that they, for all the schools that they support nationally, that they release an annual report as well. And I think we have shared that with the board previously as well, just as a point of reference, so you can see the good work that they're doing in other districts outside of Waukegan. So there is, and perhaps that's probably the report that you saw, but the quarterly reports that we get are strictly based on the services that they provide to our schools and our students.
All right.
I have a question.
Go
I guess
ahead,
a follow up
Ms.
to that.
Gonzalez, I'm
If
sorry.
Lee, if you can put up the report again, I did find it a little shocking. I don't know if anyone else felt the same. For the students served to date for the school year, 47% identify as other.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we are right. 15.4% are Latinx, 21.9% are African American, and then you go down the line and
Yep.
it's 47% other. So is that, that the students maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've just never seen that for our schools. Yeah.
And it might be Latinx that could be throwing some kids off, because there's always been debate over that.
Whether
term
they're
as well.
Hispanic or Latino, okay.
No,
or
Latinx or
It says
Latine.
15% Latinx, so maybe
Right.
maybe they're not selecting that option and they're
And
selecting the
prefer
other.
Latino or Latine.
Yeah.
Or there's
Okay.
a like ISB has a multi-race.
Okay.
Multi-race option. I can
Yeah.
get clarity on that.
Yeah, just so that
see
we-
what choices they're giving students.
Yeah.
And how they're collecting that data, just so we have an understanding of it.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful. I also, I do see the work that BAM and WOW are doing, so I don't want to minimize that at all. But I do want to, I know that there's like those brief encounters, and there's a lot of those 951 brief encounters or individual check-ins. I think in the past we have asked, and obviously it's not the easiest data to collect, but to get more data around the growth of the students who participate in the programs. If they bump up a letter grade, which I think was a data point during one of their reports that they were able to provide, just so that in the future we can see the success of the program, not just by the quantity of students that they're able to check in with, but the academic growth that they're experiencing. So, just to
That's a report that we, the district, put together.
Okay, yes.
So they do, they provide this quarterly report that's based on their particular services.
Right.
And then we look at the roster of students that are getting services and say, okay, what are those students' behavior? What are their attendance? What's their grades?
Okay.
We look at that individually through MTSS department. So
Yes.
we can bring that to the end of the year when we get their end of year assessment.
Yes.
We can bring that data with it. I think we presented on that in the past.
Yeah.
But we can do that as well. So yeah, that's coming from us on our side.
Thank you.
Okay,
I would just
Ms.
caution that.
Just before you go on, Dr. Null,
Yes.
and Ms. Patty, let's ensure that we can get that information turned around very quickly, because I'm sure the board is going to want to see that. So let's not wait on that. Put that on the to-do list and
Okay.
start having your team crunch those numbers. Thank you.
We can do that.
But just
Okay.
understanding that there's sometimes not always a direct correlation.
Right.
So just being clear that WOW's purpose is more of that social emotional, and so the more direct correlation would be behavior versus reading. But we do know from research that once you get your behavior in check, it does grow. I just want to caution that if the numbers aren't,
Ideal.
as deep as they
Yeah.
are, like there's also other things, extenuating things, or it could have been that that student was also in specific tutoring for reading, and that's why they grew. So just cautioning that those are like correlations that kind of have to be made.
Good point. Yep.
Go ahead, continue on.
Oh, go ahead.
How many
The last
more?
couple
I
slides are
missed-
just highlights related to the goal and kind of next steps.
Okay.
Did Ms. Lensing have a question? I thought she was.
Oh, Ms. Lindsay?
Well, if we want to finish the presentation, I can hold my question to the end.
Well,
That's fine.
I'm trying to get out of here. And
Okay.
because we are storming outside.
Yeah, so let me ask the question then to be blunt. So what I'm seeing in this presentation is that we did this, but to further comments of other board members, I'm not seeing the impact, right? And I understand we may not have like the hard numbered data because that'll come when we get the end of year, but I trust our principals know how their student population is doing. I know when I walk in and I speak to my children's principal, they can tell me exactly where they are at, how they are doing, and if they're ready for certain challenges. I trust that our principals have that capability, right? So when we're doing all of these things for these goals, I want to know the impact of it. So yes, we have all of these supports. And to Ms. Fabian's point, right, like when we're looking at BAM and WOW, we may not have the exact data that we're looking for, but we can hear from principals and the culture and climate specialists on recidivism, right? Are they continuing to make poor choices that land them in situations that create in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, confrontations with peers, etc.? There should be some qualitative data that we can have as we're reviewing this goal to see how well it's working. Because it's one thing to say, yes, we did all of these things. It's a wholly different conversation to see what the impact that doing these things has made with this goal.
Right. Good.
Noted, Ms.
comment.
Lansing.
Yeah.
And if I could make a connection to that, one of the highlights that we were going to discuss this evening was one of the new activities that at Ms. Rodriguez's school at Clark. They have a high population of our TPI students, and they formed a brand new club this year specifically to support their Filipino, Malayalam speaking, and Tagalog speaking students. And not only do they include the students, but they included their families. And so they have a very, very tight knit group of students, teachers, and family members through the lens of SEL support, through the lens of academic support, and through the lens of clubs and after-school opportunities that they didn't do before, that they're doing now. And qualitative data, speaking to Ms. Lensing's point, the opportunities for those students to have that connection, to have that opportunity to know who they can go to within the school, who represents their culture with them, has done leaps and bounds for the students' confidence, for their reading data, for their math data. And so I don't have that in front of me right now to speak to, but principals do know the impact and the outcome of how these clubs are impacting students. And so I wanted to paint that picture, one specific example, as to how not only do they before school, during school, and after school academic clubs help, but when you're intentional with what clubs your kids need, when you're intentional with what clubs your families need, and you can make those connections and you carve out time and budget for that, you can see qualitative and quantitative changes in what we're providing for students.
And that's all that we, as a board, that's what we need to see. And I think that's what Ms. Lindsay is focusing on.
Understood.
You know, we want to see the impact and the benefits of all of these things being done for our students.
Understood.
Comment, Ms. Hannah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Patty, I think you are right. I often kind of go into the schools and I ask questions. And the person I go to is directly to the principal, because when things are going on, they're coming out of the classroom and the principals get all the referrals, whatever the referral, whether you're fighting, whether you throw the chair, whether you could insubordinate towards the teacher. So my next question is, ask the principal, tell me, how well is your building as far as these bad students that's so-called that you have in the building? And then I asked, what are BAM doing to help you navigate some of the issues that you have? And I had a problem at one time wondering whether or not they was touching students myself. But when I went and seen and I talked to the principals, they would always say, well, little Larry was doing this, but because of the fact that he's been in these counseling sessions and having these one-on-ones and some of the field trips and stuff that they were taking, I can see a change in his attitude. Not only a change in his attitude, his self-esteem, I can see the improvement because he's talking about his mistakes. And so some of the things that they're helping the students out with, some of the ones that we thought, ones that we got BAM here for their dysfunctional behavior and whatnot. I can't say about all the schools, but some of the schools that I went in, I can see some progress from this group BAM. Not because I seen it. I've listened to the principals and tell me about, like I said, little Larry was acting out for a whole month, but now he's act like a new person, all because of the fact of the counseling sessions, the one-on-ones, and the follow-ups, and so on and so on. So I will say again, I get my information from the principals because they're the ones, the first ones on the line that get all the problems.
Okay, and in line with what Mr. McBride is speaking about, you know, all of this is centering on the elementary and middle school level. And that's what highlight, it says Goal 1, elementary, middle school. My question is, what are we doing at the high school level? We are a unit district, pre-K 12. Now, I appreciate all of the work that's being done at our elementary level. Okay, they're the least of our worries because they're so adaptable and everything. Middle school and high school, that's where our work needs to be focused at.
Yeah, one of the next steps that we would like to also highlight, Waukegan High School principals work with the Parent Advisory Council, and they actually went around and audited and spoke with every single after-school activity club sponsor, talked with students that participated in each of those clubs, talked with their student council as well as other student representatives and their parent advisory to find out what are we offering that's being well attended, what are we offering that's not being well attended, and what are we not offering at all that kids are asking for. And so part of that audit from the parent advisory panel that was led by Mr. Hill, as well as the parents that were part of that, really unearthed a lot of great information. A lot of information around what are kids asking for that we're providing enough of, not enough of, and need to do more around. And one of the points that we spoke about earlier this evening was around engaging students. And I think it was Superintendent Placencia saying, we want every student to be involved in at least one thing, one part of their after school, during school, that connects them to the school outside of their regular classes. And so one of the goals for the high school this upcoming year is to work on attendance, and speaking with how Mr. Hazard was talking about what teachers are asking about, is that we know when kids are more connected to their school, they're going to come to school more regularly. And so one of our goals for the upcoming school year, instead of it coming across as chasing kids to get to class on time, is to entice students to want to to come to school because there's a club, there's an activity, there's an adult, there's a group that they want to be there for. And so really the way that we're trying to flip the script around how we are engaging students and getting them to come to school, come to class on time, stay at school the whole day, is around that engagement and looking at how we are measuring and tracking how many positive ways are kids being engaged authentically within their high school and their middle school. It's not just get to class on time and we're proud of that and we're happy with that. No, we want you to have the whole experience. We want you to be participating in everything that the high school has to offer. If that means we need to throw out the clubs that aren't working anymore and bring in new clubs and be more innovative with the types of clubs we're offering, that's what the audit did for us. And so our full intention is to make sure that as many high school kids that want to participate and have a touch point with a before school, during school, after school, that we are opening up that information so that we can make those next steps. And so that was a really big lift this year with the parent advisory panel, and we're looking forward to being able to make those touch points with students.
And Ms. Hannah, when you start to click on the hyperlinks, you will see there is high school data intertwined in all of this. So I know you looked at the bullet point, but there is high school data in this presentation.
Okay.
So that's all on the hyperlinks. You just need to click there.
And while all of this, and I know that it's probably a future conversation, but a conversation that is long overdue. Regarding going back to our smaller learning communities concept. And I certainly hope that somewhere soon we're going to be talking about that. It was just a model that it was done through research. Okay, Johns Hopkins University research, Bill and Melinda Gates funding. It was done for a reason, and it was working, and our schools were safer, our children felt safer, and I don't know what was looked at or what have you regarding our smaller learning communities, but even the students wanted the smaller learning communities back. And because see, kids that are insecure need security, and if those smaller learning communities gave those students that security and that safety while they were in school, then I don't, as far as I'm concerned, you don't mess with stuff that's working.
So I can touch on that. And so I want to keep us focused on the presentation. It's 10:10, right? But what I will touch on this, where the district is moving, we're moving toward pathways. And there's been a very intentional effort on this with the creation of the HVAC, the bringing of IB program. You're going to be seeing us talk about an IB diploma program at the high school at some point, at the middle school program. You're going to see a very intentional focus on how JROTC is housed. And so we're going to be talking about pathways. That's not tonight's presentation, Ms. Hannah. We will come back with that, and we will have a larger discussion around this. Tonight's discussion is around the extended learning opportunities for our students before and after school, K through 12, K through 12, and the impact that it's having at the district. So can we, and
yes,
so you can look
ahead.
at this, and we'll go to the next slide. Lee, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, well, just in there. There was a next.
Yeah.
Next. Thank you, Lee.
There is one.
Yeah.
There is one, yeah, next step school.
So there was,
To
there
go
was,
to number
There's
10.
the next step one, Lee.
yeah, that's why I thought, but there it is.
There it
Yeah, there it
is.
is.
So you'll just see how we're trying to expand our partnerships, bringing the Boys and Girls Club into a district. You know, we recently talked about adding that at North, and we did, expanding it to 2 middle schools, another elementary. Reading Power, expanding that to 2 more elementary, Kumon. So you can see there. And then just really having students give a voice, as Ms. Patty stated, into the learning opportunities, clubs, extracurricular activities that they would like to see in our district. I know that Simeon Viltz came and had a district highlight on his media club, and we know how much our students enjoy that, and just really building upon what their interests are versus what we think their interests are. And then just ensuring that our summer school is really focused on Tier 1 curriculum, which opens the opportunity for fluency in reading, writing, and math. And then just really building on the knowledge that they gain from this year to the next year, so that we're building that bridge from one school year to the next. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's
Thank you.
the end of the
Ms. Hannah, before you
presentation.
get started, I just want to highlight some of the programs that I think Dr. Nault and Patty talked about. Mr. Gonzalez is out there in the audience, and you made a comment, things that are working, leave it alone.
Yes.
I want to say that if anybody know Mr. Gonzalez, he actually started off with the STARS program years ago.
Years ago.
But he's now doing the STARS program. There's a program called JAM. There's a program called New Generation. And there's other tasks dealing with our kids that we can actually say that what you're doing, Mr. Gonzalez, having an impact on our students. And I want to say that our violent prevention people out there that's dealing with gangs and gun shooting and whatnot, your name come up quite often, because I hear that some of the students that you have, whatever you have done with teaching with your I'm trying to find the word, life skills, has been working on those individuals that they deal with in the neighborhoods, that they deal with all the craziness that's going on. They have said to me that whatever you're doing, some of the young men that they're dealing with, their attitude has changed because of the fact whatever programs you got going. So that would just share with me some of the violence prevention programs out there. So I just think that you needed to hear that. And I know you normally don't come to the board meeting, but you've been here all night, so I just think people need to know who you really are.
And
Thank
just
you.
and just because you're there, Mr. Gonzalez, and please correct me if I'm not stating this correctly, but he will not be overseeing our STARS program next year. He will help us find someone new and sit on, I'm hoping, an interview committee. I don't know what Dr. Cesaro is going to do with that. Not because of lack of will, skill, or want. He just has a lot of things burning, right, with the Saturday program and your own life, etc. So let's just get out in front of that. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
you.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Dr. Cesario.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Everybody. Miss Lindsay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we are about to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, ayes have it.
Thank you, everybody.
We are
Thank you. Good night.